Good evening and welcome to the July 13th, 2026 City Council Special Meeting. Thank you for joining us. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Murphy,
Here.
Councilmember Watton,
Here.
Councilmember Holloway,
Here.
Councilmember Washington,
Here.
Councilmember Cotton,
Present.
Councilmember Testman,
Here.
Councilmember Johnson.
Here.
The roll. Oh, you're there? The roll is complete. We have a quorum.
Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Washington, seconded by Councilmember Watton. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, those that approve say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion passes unanimously and the agenda is approved. Tonight's agenda has two items of special business on it. The first is a discussion of the 2027-2028 biennial budget. Then we will have a brief discussion. We'll have a discussion of a potential city services levy. With that, I think then switch gears. So give us a second here. We have a very dangerous thing happening, which is the mayor is going to attempt to drive the slides. Okay. So if I could ask, just because of time limitations, please hold your questions until the end. Maybe noting the slide number that you have a question about so that we can double back to that when we get to the question period. But let me get through the whole presentation so it all kind of ties together, and then we will have, I think, plenty of time to go back and take questions. So with that, what I want to talk about tonight is really service levels and sustainability, financial sustainability, and what that means to our upcoming budget discussions. What services we're providing today, what has changed over the last several years, and what level of service we want to fund going forward. I'll start with revenue and costs, then walk through major service areas, and finally the choices in front of us. Want to start with revenue over time? Part of my screen is obscured. Can one of you keep track of whether one of the council members raises their hand online? But I'm going to just take that off my screen. Okay. Everything on this slide is adjusted to 2027 dollars. So we're comparing purchasing power over time. In 2019, operating revenue was about 26.2 million. For 2027, we're forecasting about 22.8 million. Why 2019? Because that's the year following our last levy lift proposal. So it's a way of sort of going back and saying, where were we? And then kind of moving forward in time. COVID clearly affected the early part of this period. But after COVID, the City Council intentionally pursued other revenue sources before returning to a discussion of property tax. Then the big event in 2026 is that we lost the North Bend Police contract and the associated cost sharing. The larger point is that in real terms, operating revenue is well below its earlier level. So let's look more closely at what's changing between 2026 and 2027. The immediate year-over-year change is actually fairly small, about 300,000. Utility tax revenue increases, reflecting allocation of all of this tax to the general fund, and the planned utility rate increases. Service charges also increase somewhat. Those increases are offset by lower department-related shared fees and grant revenues. Property tax and sales and B&O tax are slightly down or essentially flat in real terms. So the 2027 issue is not a sudden revenue collapse. It's the cumulative effect of revenue not keeping pace with costs over time. This is the same issue viewed by revenue source. Since 2019, total operating revenue is down about 3.4 million in inflation-adjusted dollars. Property tax alone is down about 2.3 million in real terms. Sales and B&O tax and utility tax have largely kept pace because of course, those are based on sales, and sales adjust with inflation. Service charges have increased. Fees, grants, and other revenue are more variable and have declined. The important point here is that property tax is our largest operating tax source, and it is the source that has fallen materially in real purchasing power. That's not accidental. State law generally limits levy growth to 1% annually without voter approval. That would be less of a problem if our costs were also growing at 1%. They aren't. Nearly 60% of our operating costs are personnel. Another 29% is services, and many of those services are themselves labor-driven. Taken together, about 88% of operating costs are substantially affected by labor costs. For 2027, wage increases and step increases produce about 6.5% employee compensation growth before we even get to other cost pressures. Benefits are also increasing. Together, that adds about $1.2 million to personnel costs from 2026 to 2027. And some contracts and insurance costs are increasing by 10 to 30%. So this is the structural problem. The largest revenue source is constrained to roughly 1% growth, while the cost of providing services rises much faster. That brings us to the choices. I've tried to organize the budget overview into 4 categories. First, we can operate within existing revenues. That would require further service reductions. Second, we can maintain current service levels. That means funding inflation and the loss of the North Bend cost sharing, but largely preserves 2025 service levels. Third, we can restore services that were reduced in recent years and modernize where needed. And fourth, there are perhaps additional council priorities and strategic investments. For example, this budget, the restore previous reductions doesn't include funding for significant initiatives like, say, affordable housing or other things that the council has been discussing. These are intentionally separated because I don't think we should treat all spending requests as equivalent. My proposal focuses primarily on restore and modernize. So I want to show you what that means department by department. These are the requests I intend to bring, which are lower than the requests that the department heads made to you at the council retreat. Start with law enforcement. Law enforcement is probably the clearest example of the distinction between maintaining and restoring. The proposal maintains our current patrol staffing at 12. I'm not proposing to add patrol officers. What I am proposing is restoring one civilian support position. We previously had 3 civilian support positions. One was charged to North Bend under the Joint Services Agreement. Today, only 2 civilian staff are performing the records, public records, and administrative work. And when they're not available, that work must be done by officers. Restoring that position allows vacations, training, illness, and for officers to spend more time doing police work. The proposal also funds body-worn cameras. Even after these changes, inflation-adjusted law enforcement spending is essentially back to the 2019 level. The difference is that Snoqualmie is now carrying the full cost of a standalone police department. Fire's in a different position. We've maintained and actually strengthened operational staffing. The proposed change is relatively minor, moving administrative support from a part-time to full-time position. The goal is to keep operational leadership focused on readiness, training, accreditation, and emergency services rather than routine administrative work. Streets, parks, and trails. On the right, the story is different. We had 11.
Mayor,
Did I go to the wrong page? I did.
can you go back a slide so it's
I
showing up
can.
on, thank you. Thank you.
Sure. There we go. Streets and parks on the right side. Thank you. So on the right, the story is different. We had 11 employees supporting these functions in 2019. We have 8 today. The proposal maintains those 8 positions. I would point out in the bottom left that in 2021, the urban forestry program and its associated FTEs were moved from the general fund to the stormwater operations fund. So this proposal maintains the 8 positions. It maintains the current service model and funds the cost of continuing it. Okay. Community and economic development is one of the areas where reductions have had the greatest effect on organizational capacity. In 2019, the department had 9 FTE. Today it has 6. The result has been a necessary focus on permits, inspections, and required planning work. What we've had much less capacity to do is anticipate issues, engage early on regional and state decisions. For example, the thing that's taking most of our council time this year so far, less time to support local businesses and work proactively on economic development. We've seen the consequences of that with issues such as BES, UGA planning, and housing requirements. The proposal restores planning capacity, adds economic development capacity, and provides resources for expert studies and annexation work. Even with the proposal, the department remains below its 2019 inflation-adjusted funding level. Finance is another area where the reduction in capacity is not always visible to residents, but it affects the entire organization. Staffing declined from 13 at one point to 9 today. The department has necessarily focused on keeping basic financial operations running and meeting deadlines. That leaves less capacity for forecasting, analysis, and helping departments and council understand financial results before decisions are made. The ERP implementation also stalled, leaving us with manual processes and, in some cases, having to double entry into 2 different systems. This proposal adds capacity in payments and customer service, and importantly, budget and financial analysis. The goal is earlier information, better forecasting, and better decision support. You all may remember a lengthy discussion about the legal department at our retreat. I think that legal presents a slightly different opportunity. Our internal legal capacity has declined substantially, and we've increasingly relied on outside counsel. This proposal adds an assistant city attorney and the legal analyst. At the same time, we reduce the outside counsel budget. So the total department cost remains essentially flat. The difference is where the capacity sits. More work can be handled internally, institutional knowledge stays within the city, and departments have earlier access to legal support. To me, this is a good example of restoring capacity without simply increasing total cost. Administration, governance, and communications is another area that has been substantially reduced since 2019. These functions include the clerk's office, public records, executive support, communications, and other citywide administrative work. The proposal addition is half an FTE focused on public records and executive administrative support. Public records demands have continued to grow, and those are legally required responsibilities. The goal is not to build a larger administrative bureaucracy. It's to make sure required work is completed and that other staff are not continually pulled away from their primary responsibilities to absorb it. Facilities is an area where deferral can look inexpensive in the short term and become very expensive over time. Our 2023 facility assessment identified about $15.3 million in maintenance and repair needs over 20 years. The proposal adds $200,000 for deferred building maintenance. It adds $100,000 for heating and cooling improvements, including preventive service and aging systems. It adds $100,000 for a facilities master plan. The objective is to move away from waiting for things to fail and toward a planned maintenance and investment cycle. We own these buildings. Delaying maintenance does not eliminate the cost. So putting that together, this slide pulls the department discussion, individual department discussions all together. And in 2019, these general fund functions cost about $26.3 million in today's dollars. In 2026, the budget is about $23.1 million. To maintain, restore, and modernize, the restore and modernize proposal brings that to about $26.2 million. Headcount was about 85 in 2019, fell to about 76, and under this proposal would be about 84.5. So this is an important point. In real dollars and staffing, this proposal is broadly restoring the organization to its earlier scale, not creating a materially larger city government. The mix is different because the city's needs have changed, but the overall scale is remarkably similar. So before we talk about restoration, we have to fund what we're already doing. Maintaining current service levels costs more in 2027 because of inflation, wages, benefits, contracts, and other operating costs. We also have the loss of North Bend Police cost sharing. Those costs do not add a new service. They're the cost of continuing current service levels at approximately current levels. This is why I think do nothing is not actually a status quo option. Without additional revenue, we would need to further reduce services to balance the budget. Restore is the next layer. These are the targeted restorations we just walked through. Police civilian support, CED planning and economic development capacity, financial analysis and operational support, internal legal capacity, public records support, facilities maintenance and planning. These are not intended to recreate every position or program that existed in the past. They're targeted at areas where the reductions are now affecting service levels, responsiveness, and our ability to plan ahead. So if we separate from restoration, or let me say that differently, separate from restoration are additional council priorities. These are legitimate policy choices, but I think it's important we see them separately. Affordable housing initiatives, UGA work, reserve funding, and other priorities all have value. The question is how much we want to fund now and how much additional revenue we are willing to ask residents to provide. My recommendation is that we first establish the cost of maintaining and restoring core service levels, then make deliberate choices about additional priorities. This slide shows the amount of spending that would be required if all of the department director requests that were made to you at the retreat were funded. Service. This is the slide that shows the amount that is in the green section of the budget slides that I just went through with you for each of the departments, and it would raise a total revenue amount or would require a total revenue amount of 26.2 million, which is almost exactly where we were inflation adjusted in 2019. It will raise about $3.4 million. And then the cost of just maintaining the 2025 service levels. So this is just inflation and wage increases would require an additional 1.5 million. So all three choices on one slide. All right, so I mentioned property taxes. Why property taxes? The answer is the city did not go directly to property taxes. In recent years, the city added or increased other available operating revenue sources, including the voter-approved sales tax. The city intentionally delayed returning to the topic of property tax. At the same time, staffing and service levels were reduced. But property tax is our largest operating tax source, and it's the source that has not kept pace with inflation. Sales, B&O, and utility taxes rise with the underlying sales or revenues on which they're based. Property tax is different. Without voter approval, levy growth is generally limited to 1%. After using other available revenues and reducing service levels, the remaining structural gap is primarily in our largest operating tax source. So these are the three funding levels that were discussed on previous slides. Funding every department request would require about 4.5 million in additional property tax, or about $64 per month on the median home value. The restore and modernize requires about 3.4 million, or about $49 per month. And maintaining the current service levels alone requires about 1.5 million, or about $21 per month. Without a lid lift, Further service reductions will be needed because costs are rising faster than revenue. My recommendation is the middle option. It does not fund every request. It restores the service levels and organizational capacity I believe are needed. So to put the property tax funding in context over time, in 2019, the city collected about 11.1 million in property tax in 2027 dollars. Without a lid lift, we project about 8.8 million in 2027. The proposed restore and modernize option brings that to about 12.2 million. The 1.1 million difference from 2019 primarily reflects the loss of the North Bend Police cost sharing and the cost of maintaining a standalone police department. At the same time, total taxable property value has increased substantially. So for a 1 million assessed property, which is right about where the average property value is in Snoqualmie currently, the inflation-adjusted city property tax under the proposal remains below the 2019 amount. This also gives residents a straightforward way to look at their own assessed value and understand the impact by showing this in per million of, based on a 1 million assessed value, they can do the math and figure out what their property impact would be. So the levy lid concept, levy lid lift concept has two parts. First, a one-time permanent lid lift in 2027 to restore service levels and fund needed modernization. Second, for the following years, is to adjust the levy limit for inflation and population growth. Our other major operating taxes already grow with prices because they're a percentage of sales or revenues. Property tax, as I mentioned, is our largest operating tax source, but is structurally different. The inflation adjustment is not intended to expand services every year. It's intended to allow the service levels that we fund in 2027 to be maintained over time. So that's the goal: restore service levels, then maintain them. That's myself. Okay, I think I talked through that. All right, here's the timeline. If we were to go with a property tax levy lid lift of the type that allows us to change the annual 1%, those have to go in a general election. So that would be the November election. And the timeline for that is actually short. Tonight is the council presentation and discussion. We can have as many discussions between now and the coming weeks as you would like to have at whatever level of detail. The idea would be to bring you a council resolution on July 27th. The King County filing deadline for the November election is August 4th. If council moves forward, voters would consider that measure on November 3rd. Council would still adopt the budget and annual property tax levy in November, and if approved, the additional revenue would begin in 2027. So tonight, I'm looking for council discussion and direction on two questions. What service level do we want to fund? And do we want to place the revenue question before voters? These slides will all be available starting tomorrow. If you would like, I can email them to you. They will be available on the city website starting tomorrow. As will the slides from your budget retreat. Let's see, one other thing I want to show you perhaps before your discussion, if that's all right, is the example wording of what a ballot measure would look like. And I will just give me a moment and I will put that up. And I have to share it. All right. There we go. So it has two parts, something like a levy lid lift proposal. There's let's see if I get, there's the proposition itself, and then there's the explanatory statement. The word count is very restricted for each of these, and especially in the title, the proposition title, the content is almost completely prescribed, not heavily prescribed by state laws to what has to be in there. So I'll just let you read that for yourself, and then in just a moment, I'll move down to explanatory statement. This is just a draft, but it gives a sense of what this wording might look like. Can we hold discussion until the end? Would that be all right?
Question pertaining to this then, when we can actually speak as a council.
Okay, super. I'll just leave that up there for a moment. Just the part that's off the bottom is some required information, but since I don't know if you choose to go this path, I don't know which of those choices you would take. I just left placeholders in for the 3 data points that would be added. And with that, that's the presentation I have for you. Happy to take any questions or any discussion the council would like to have, including any further information you'd like to see, how to facilitate you having further discussions to the extent you would like to have them. Councilmember Cotton.
Yes, sir. Definitely, I would love to get this slide information as soon as possible. I'm sure myself and the other council members would have really liked to have gotten this more than a day before the general public and it going up on our website. And certainly since we have not had any discussions since our retreat regarding this information and potential options. And it seems that we've kind of been putting this off to the very last minute, which is definitely concerning that we haven't gotten any resident or public input on reducing services to the community. But ultimately, my question is there a reason that you are doing the presentation versus our department heads or finance department, as is usual when we're having these kinds of discussions?
I don't think that what you said is true at all. That's not usual. I'm making the presentation because I wanted to give you a coherent presentation.
And our staff doesn't give coherent presentations?
I resent you saying that. I think our staff gives very coherent
I do
presentations.
too. That's why I'm surprised to not be hearing from them this evening. And just wondered if there was a major or underlying reason, but
Councilmember I'm not
Sorry,
sure
Council.
it's constructed.
Councilmember
Understand,
Holloway.
but
thank you.
Councilmember Washington.
Yes. Mr. Mayor, can you go back to slide, I believe it's 14. I just wanted to make sure I'm reading the slide correctly. It showed the additional amounts for each department. I just wanted to make sure that I'm reading that correctly. Just a quick follow-up, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, yeah, Councilmember Washington.
Thank you. So is this, so the additional column to the far right, is that additional to the 2026 budget? Is that what that means?
Correct. So
Okay.
this is what it would cost to fund the 2025 service levels in 2027. So you remember from the slide that we talked about costs going up, you remember 1.2 million of that is just internal personnel costs. So it's just to maintain. This is just to maintain. And this is a comparison of, so this comparison is in 25 service staff and those one not. So this is all in nominal dollars. So this is comparing actual 26 nominal dollars to 2027 amounts. And this is the amount that is needed to cover inflation and increased costs. Councilmember Holloway.
So I'm curious to hear why 2019 was the benchmark and where was the determination under which councils from 2019 thereon failed in their duty to contain cost and provide services. When did we stop providing adequate services to the community?
So the reason we picked 2019 is that's the year after the last levy lid lift. So it seemed like a relevant sort of comparison point. And then as you see, the things that happened kind of summarized at the bottom of the slide, there's a lot of things that have happened over that period. So there was the COVID period where we intentionally cut back costs, significant revenue cut back. So that's sort of the those few years. And the other thing that happened in those years, as you recall, is inflation significantly accelerated. 2020, well, I'm not going to do this off the top of my head, but we had 9% inflation one of those years, very high the following years. So the revenue really, in 2027 dollars, you see that really dipping. That was sort of during the COVID and high inflation years that were associated with that. Then you have a period where council tried to address revenues, and there was a sort of combination of revenue actions. The council and previous versions of the council went through all the other different types of ways to raise revenue without going back to property taxes. And as you see, there's a sort of steady increase through 2025, although it's still below the 2019 levels. The other thing that happened during those years was significant cutbacks in service levels. So I kind of went through those numbers on the department slides. So, and then now we're looking at 2026. The drop is primarily, well, the significant thing that happens in 2026 is the loss of the North Bend cost sharing. And then we're just forecasting out to 2027 and 2028, the current revenue sources and the drivers that cause them to go up. So for example, property taxes in there at 1%.
So again, there's an underlying assumption that somewhere along here, council stopped doing their job. I disagree. 2019 was a public safety levy, so it's only a portion of the overall. So I'm not sure I understand it as the benchmark to achieve. So I need to understand what service levels we should be achieving versus just back to that point. My other question though is the discussion with North Bend at the time was that we were subsidizing their police service. I don't see consideration of how did that affect us when we scaled back. So public safety, I need to see a bottoms up where if we are going to maintain 2 officers on a mentoring or a management officer on top, 7x24, 365, what does that get us? Okay. So I'm again confused of why there wasn't, if we had been telling North Bend we were subsidizing, we pulled back, why there isn't relief on our side as a result of that action. So I need further understanding, and I just having seen these slides tonight, I cannot make a decision on wanting to move forward or not. I don't know if I have other questions. I need to sit and study. I have not been given that time If administration wants to do maybe a meeting next week or something other for more in-depth discussion along those lines, we may have that discussion, but I am not prepared tonight to recommend that we proceed forward on levy lid lift.
Yeah, if I could just try and help with that. The intention tonight, you've got several weeks now ahead of you before you have to make a decision. There's no agenda bill being brought to you tonight. This is a kickoff of a discussion, and the kind of information I tried to capture what you're asking. The idea is in the coming weeks to bring you all of that information that you need to help you get to a decision. So kind of need to hear from you, what do you need? And then when would you like to have those discussions? Councilmember Tessman.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. First, I'd like to say thank you. I think it was good framing, particularly on the budget choices where you outline, reduce service level as a choice, maintain current, and restore, and then strategic priorities. So I think that was good framing. However, my critique would be what got sussed out clearly in what you presented was what it would take to maintain, what it would take to restore, and what it would take to exceed that. But we never got a sense of what, frankly, a $22.7 million budget, what that would mean in reality. So something that would be helpful, and I think it connects to Councilmember Holloway's point, which is, I moved here in 2020. So I experienced the city of Snoqualmie with a $26 million budget. I've also experienced the city of Snoqualmie with a $23.1 million budget. And between my personal experience and, more importantly, the lack of communication from constituents saying that they've noticed a depreciable worsening of the service level of the city of Snoqualmie, that's not a message I'm getting. I don't think anyone else is. Then that leads me to think that maybe that 23.1 is kind of our equilibrium. Maybe it's 22.1, something right around there. And so the bottom line is my request would be, could we understand in as much detail as was provided for the other scenarios what a reduction would look like, or, a budget that adheres to 22.8 or 22.7, I guess would be more applicable.
So I could just say, council would like that. Council would need to direct us where to cut. You tell us which departments to cut, we can come back and tell you what cuts of $1 million or whatever the numbers would be in those departments. I have no cuts to offer you. I think that, as you heard, we're severely understaffed in a few departments. I think we've got to restore. So that's the proposal I'm bringing you. If you would like to cut, absolutely fine. Just tell us which departments, and then we'll go prepare what that would look like for you. Councilmember Johnson.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what my reaction is too, is if we go through each of the departments and we start thinking about, okay, which one's going to get us $1.5 million? Is community development going to get this there? Well, I guess if we wanted to violate a bunch of state laws and rack up a bunch of fines, okay, I don't think that that's going to get us anywhere close anyway. We could go into our fire department. I think we're going to start hearing from a lot of constituents that they don't like having substantially slower response times, especially going into some of the safety concerns in neighboring areas that have been coming up. We could look at water and stormwater. Wait a minute, those aren't relevant. Those are a different funding source. We could look at our fund balance. We could start drawing that down. I'm not sure how far that's going to get us. And even if we did, well, then we're just back at the same spot a year from now, but now we don't even have that cushion. So, that does leave police. And again, is that really something that we want to do? Is that something that our residents really want? And surprisingly, I thought that I actually heard a complaint about a level of service so far tonight. And that is with regard to how much time it took to get this prepared. If we had a fully funded finance department, then we probably could have gotten all of this worked out much faster. So I would love to get to the kinds of levels of service that I think both our residents and the council are looking for.
Councilmember Cotton.
Well, I appreciate Councilmember Johnson's points. None of us wants to go in and pick departments. But what we could certainly do which I'm hoping we could do in the next few weeks if we're going to be having more meetings, is also allow our constituents to weigh in on this subject of services and get the actual information from the residents that will have to pay these taxes, as well as if there is issues or if the preference is for budget cuts because they're not going to approve a levy lid lift, then perhaps they could help us with decisions about services if they would like to see them cut or not. But we don't know because we haven't been able to hear from them.
Councilmember Watton.
Thank you, Mayor. Let me just remind everyone that under RCW 35A dash or dot 33, the mayor is responsible for submitting a balanced budget for consideration. So the onus is on the mayor to make the decisions and come forward showing what a balanced budget is based on the revenue. Instead, we've gone the other direction to see how large we can build our city. And I think that there needs to be a balance between the two. I'm a little bit dismayed that the council did not have a chance during the retreat to allow us to discuss priorities that we feel our citizens would like to see. And that's part of our job, is to set policy. And instead, we heard from each department one by one how they needed more personnel to accomplish. And I totally get it. But being in the private sector, we're forced all the time to make decisions, and we're not able to increase rates on our customers because we always could use more staff. But the challenge is this, and I see Councilmember Murphy's up too, and that's affordability. We've seen it in the rate hikes that we had to take in utilities. We see it in everyday things that we do. We see it at the gas pump, the grocery stores, the insurance that we pay for our families, and we most certainly see it in the property taxes that we each pay. And yes, the burden is greater in King County on residents than in his business. And I believe Assessor Wilson has stated that 88% of all the tax revenue comes through residents, not through businesses. Yet, if we continue to increase taxes on businesses, we have another challenge. They end up leaving the state, and they're doing that. And it's happening right here in Snoqualmie. We have lost a lot of businesses already because we have to make sure there's a balance. The next thing is we do have negotiated contracts, and we have to understand, where our path forward is. We have to be competitive in making sure that we fill our firefighter roles, our police roles with other cities, because we will lose officers and we will lose tenured people to other cities, and we have that challenge. But we as a council need to understand that better so that we can make reasonable choices going forward. And I think any business, whether it's private sector or the public, that when we lose people, especially, I see this all the time in our police department. You go out on rides with our police officers. There is a big difference when you have tenured officers that know exactly where they need to be and what our biggest challenges are. We lose that when we have turnover. So we have to be mindful that whatever we do, we have to be very, very intentional in. And here's the next one. And that is a challenge. And I did bring this up in our retreat, that there's new technology that can make our lives easier. I use it every day. It's AI. And we have to be more innovative in government, like businesses are doing, to find the ways that we can service people better, our public, and do so in a timely and equitable fashion. And I think that there's room for improvement. We haven't even really delved into that. And I think that deserves, and we go through this all the time in business. We have to figure out how to reach more people with a smaller workforce. And where is that piece in our local government? And I think that's an opportunity that we can take advantage of. So whenever there's constraints, there's opportunities. But simply going to the voters and asking for more money in a very difficult time, watching how hard it is for affordability, especially when it comes to housing, knowing that 80% of our workforce can't afford to live here and they commute in, we're doing them injustice. So our challenge is, how do we make do with perhaps less? And we have to get more creative. I'm not seeing that yet. And I'd like to see the balance between the two. So those are my comments.
If I could just point out on the slide that's on the screen, far from taxes going up, property tax in real terms has gone down 20%, $2.3 million a year. So taxes have not been going up in Snoqualmie over that period. They've been going down. Councilmember Murphy.
Thank you, Mayor. Echoing some, I won't repeat some of the points already made, but I will just say I need quite a bit more time to analyze this package here. I think really just trying to get through the substance of it. I don't think I'll be in any position to really give much direction at all before having a chance to delve into this. So I'm hoping we can perhaps get together again next week at echo Councilmember Holloway in that perspective. The one thing I will say, though, is trying to put myself into the shoes of our residents related to the affordability question is, last year we saw utility rates increase and we saw waste management increase, and the boom times of the Seattle economy are not here anymore, right? We are seeing job loss outpacing the national average for the first time in quite some time in this region. I know many friends anecdotally are out of work thanks to Microsoft layoffs, Amazon layoffs, other layoffs. So I think whatever we do, we have to be very sensitive to the fact that our residents are also feeling the pain. They are also feeling it in their pocketbooks and in their job prospects. And they're sacrificing as well. I think there's going to have to be some semblance of shared sacrifice as we move forward. Whereas this is not 5 years ago where I think we could maybe pull this lever a little bit easier. So the last thing I will say is to echo Councilmember Cotton is that it'd be great to see if we have done surveys. I know perhaps the last administration had done a survey related to some of the priorities that residents may have had with respect to stack ranking things of that nature. But it'd be nice to see some of what our residents are telling us in some of these decisions and some of these proposals going forward. But I'm excited to dive into this more fully over the next 14 days, not a lot of time, and go from there. Thank you.
Just would make the point that 5 years ago, the council was very intentional in not raising taxes. That was as you see from the chart on the screen, exactly when COVID and all the impacts and all the disruption was hitting us. So just would point that out as far as what was 5 years ago. Councilmember Tessman.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of thoughts on the conversation that's unfolded so far. I think, obviously, when we look at the cost side of the equation, inflation is completely relevant, right? I get that. And I appreciate the contextualization to forecast at $2027. However, what gets lost in this conversation, which is the metric for affordability, is real wage growth. And frankly, I guarantee if we pull the statistics, that hasn't kept up. I know for a fact it hasn't on the national level. We can look at King County. but real wage growth is what's
Declined.
gonna determine the level of pain a levy will impose on our residents. The other thing I would highlight is for the, for lack of a better description, the full Monty of maintain, restore, and invest. The projected impact of that for our residents by the slides that are presented here today is a 29.7% increase year over year in their property taxes. That's, I mean, honestly, the adjective for that is extreme, right? So we got to keep that in mind. 29.7 on top of all the additions they've absorbed so far. And then the other 2 points I'd like to make are, and I'm glad, Councilmember Watton, that you raised the RCW, because just my, I'm the new guy on the block, right? But just my bottom line expectation would be that the administration would provide a balanced budget in the scenario where there is no levy increase. This council is positioned well to provide advice, or not advice, but to provide guidance from such a budget. But I would expect that as much effort would be put into producing that budget as a wish list for the department. So I'm glad you made that point. And then finally, to Councilmember Johnson, I would just say on the point about 1.5 million, it's nowhere to be found. I say, one, we have an obligation to look. If it doesn't exist, it can't be found, then that makes explaining it to our constituents a heck of a lot easier, right? We can say it simply doesn't exist. We did a bottoms up look. Here's what we came up with as possible to cut. Maybe it's 750,000, right? But we owe the public that work. That's all I have.
If I could just say, unfortunately, Councilmember Watton's read of the RCW is not correct. So we'll get a correct reading of that for you at your next meeting. There's no requirement that a budget that assumes no revenue growth, that is just not a correct statement. So we'll get you the exact explanation of that. We'll get the city attorney to walk you through that at your next meeting. Councilmember Holloway.
Well, and I guess I was kind of, I think it does imply a balanced budget, but it, in that it assumes revenue projections and everything else. The administration has provided you a balanced budget here with the assumption of a levy lid drift. So they have complied, in my opinion, with what the responsibilities are. But I'll further put back the fiduciary responsibility to the city is the council's. It is ours, not the administration's. He will execute what we determine as the plan moving forward, the executive branch. Okay, but the fiduciary responsibility is ours. If we need to take time to look at that and say, hey, pull it back, whatever. I do also, can we go to the revenue picture? No, you were just, that one. Well, either one will work. My only counterpoint, Councilman Watton, is past councils have been doing more with less. Matter of fact, we did so much less at the end of COVID. We said, whoa, need to bring some back. But it was appropriate at that stage, given the context of COVID and everything else, that we got to that level. But councils have been managing, and that was my point earlier, have been managing what is the appropriate level of service and how do we support that all the way through. I do not fault prior councils for where we are.
Councilmember Johnson.
Yeah, I mean, we've really cut back so much over the last couple of years that I'm afraid that it's starting to actually cost us with regard to deferred maintenance and with regard to some potential legal issues. At our retreat, city attorney presented us with what the actual level of service is right now, which is not sustainable. There are things that do have to get done that are not currently funded. And if we continue at that level, we are going to end up in a whole lot of trouble if we assume that this current level of service is sustainable. It's not. There are things that are not getting done that do need to get done at some point. We need to find a way to fund them. And, as much as I would absolutely love to pass the buck on to the mayor and say, hey, why don't you pick the thing that you want to cut? And then let us go, oh, well, That was just the mayor's idea to cut that beloved program or that beloved department. That wasn't us. I don't think that that's going to cut it. I think that if we are serious, if we want to cut a substantial amount out of our current level of services, we have to pick it. That's what we're elected to do, is to take responsibility.
Agreed.
Councilmember, oh, by the way, council members, I'll just remind you that you should not name each other in the responses, but rather speak to the council as a whole. Councilmember Washington.
Yeah, just again, the historical context. So a year ago, our residents took an increase in the utility rate, in their utility rates. They took an increase in their waste management fees. Again, no fault of the city. We were grandfathered into a great contract that expired. It's business. It's what happens. But with that said, this year, there's a 12% increase with PSC. And so just weighing all of that and knowing that, the core inflation number is still, what, a third above what the Fed is targeting, which is hitting our residents as well. I would be interested in having a conversation, I do say this word, austerity, and looking at where we can make some hard choices.
So if I could, council, I think you've already been in my view, the mayor's view is you've been in severe austerity for many years, and you can't survive continuing that. We must restore these services. That's why that's the view I brought. We started with department heads tell the council everything you think, your professional advice that you think your departments need. That's what they presented to you with no filter from me at the retreat. Now you're seeing what I think, which is not what they asked for. It is less than what they asked for. I believe that the maintained budget is too austere. There are too many positions that I believe we must have. We cannot continue a community development department that is this hobbled. We're seeing the massive consequences of that in many places. I think that the police department continuing to try to operate with 2 civilians is we're living on borrowed time on that, I think. So I just think that I think we're already in austerity. I'm trying to pitch to you that I think we need to restore. But I also brought the maintained budget. The notion of a cut budget is something that I don't see anywhere in any way to do that. So that what I'm saying to you is, you tell me where you want to cut, I'll go tell you then what that would take. So you tell me the department you want to cut and how much, and I'll come back to you with answers. So I think it's our job, and you do have 3 weeks. I think it's our job in the coming weeks to answer your questions, look where you want, ask us whatever questions you have. I've been writing them down as fast as I can, and we'll go back to the recording and try and capture them as well. What information do you need? Who do you need to hear from? Try to help you get to where you can decide what you think, because ultimately the council has the sole responsibility to set the budget, and the administration will then execute that budget. So Councilmember Holloway, and then Councilmember Watton. Sorry, say it again.
Timeline?
Oh, timeline.
Boop. So you're looking
August
for-
4th is your deadline. Yeah.
Yeah, but you're looking for a council resolution July 27th.
Well, that's
2 weeks.
That's your next regular council meeting. So ideally, we'll bring it to you then. But you don't have to act until August. August 4th is when you have to act by. Councilmember Watton.
I will bring up too that times change. And if we go back to 2019, it was the development phase of the mill site that required a lot of work on the part of the city. To compare that to today and the need for the same number of headcount, I have a hard time trying to connect the dots. The development today, the activities, we're pretty much at the end of the build out phase. And I really think we need to have a better understanding of a baseline of what each department needs to operate efficiently. We've had a wish list of things that if we had all the resources, this is what it means. And I need to see a lot more information. And I'd like to see what the baseline is that we need to perform, not, it'd be great to have staff to do extra things, but we also have to have the expectation that money is precious.
All right, Councilmember Cotton and then Councilmember Murphy.
So I would, again, like to reiterate, as several other council members have, that with our meetings, we need to get this information out to our residents and need to get feedback and input, testimony, comments, whatever we can get from our residents about services. If there were to be cuts in departments, or services, if that was something, or if they're amenable to property tax increases. I don't see it with all the other things that have come down the pike in the last 2 years, as has been brought up, and I would certainly like to not be making a decision about whether people can buy groceries or pay their property taxes. So I do definitely want to get our residents' input on this most important matter.
By the way, council, there is time for us to schedule a town hall if you would like that. So that's the sort of thing that you can sort of let me know that you would like to have, and we'll make that happen for you. Councilmember Murphy.
Yeah, I think on the engagement side, I just feel dismayed that we're here at really at the 11th hour. And it seems that the opportunity to engage our residents was months ago, right? Like, we want to have very high certainty that whatever we put before them will succeed for all the reasons that have been described in these presentations. And that takes work. That takes a lot of legwork and a lot of conversation with residents and understanding where their perspectives are on the level of service that they come to expect. And maybe the answer is one of the increased budgets. Maybe it is, but I don't think we know that. And it feels like we're really flying blind here. And it's not a position I'm really comfortable with at the moment, because I'd like to get better signal from residents, and we're here having to make this decision in a pretty short period of time to come to them and ask for some pretty significant input. So it's not to say it can't be done, but it's not ideal. So that's something that I'm struggling with and wrestling with right now, in addition to all the other things that have been discussed today. That's it for me.
And for those of you who may not be aware, this is something that many cities in King County are struggling with right now. Many of our neighboring cities are looking to go out at the same time. These are very tough choices to face, and we're not alone. Councilmember Holloway.
Move to have a special council meeting next Wednesday at 7 PM, particularly to talk about the budget.
Hold on just a moment.
Here at 5.
Next week,
No, next.
next week.
Next week, Wednesday.
22nd.
Yeah,
Okay.
22nd.
Okay. I will.
Oh, we'd have to do it then.
Yeah. Or another council roundtable. It doesn't have to be called special.
Councilmember Holloway, just regarding your motion and the fact that we're in a special meeting and what was noticed, would it be your intent that your motion was to direct the administration to schedule a meeting at that date?
Whoever gets it done, sure.
Okay. So motion by Councilmember Holloway to request that administration set a special council meeting for next Wednesday. Did you name a time?
7 PM.
7 PM. Next, is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Holloway, seconded by Councilmember Washington. Hold on just a minute. Council, just taking legal advice. Perhaps if it may be that you cannot vote on this motion in this meeting, but if I looked around the room and saw nodding heads or shaking heads, I could take appropriate action on your behalf.
I'm willing to hold motion till we get into council.
Or just nod your head.
Or just nod your head. I see 2 nods, 3, 4.
It is 30 meeting today. See that happen. Yes, please.
Okay, I don't see any shaking heads. So Councilmember Cotton.
So as a follow-up to that, because I'm not clear on this, but 2 things. Can there be public comment made during a special meeting?
City Attorney, the answer is yes. Is that correct?
I mean, there can be sorry, yes, theoretically, there can be public comment at a special meeting. Traditionally, there's not, and special meetings are limited to what's on the agenda in terms of final action. So typically, a special meeting does not have public comment unless the item on the agenda requires public comment, because usually a special meeting is just for that 1 or 2 things.
So City Attorney, could they have public comment on the topic of the budget? That would be okay?
Yes, that would be.
Okay, that was, the other part of my question was, so in emergency services, there's always a plan B. So when plan A, if it doesn't go through like a levy lid lift, what would our plan B become? Or is there any goal to have a plan B in place?
Councilmember Holloway.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I didn't reveal my entire plan. And I asked for sense of the council on this, in that I hope we have a conversation next Wednesday in regards to the budget. We come down to what we think a council counter, or we go with what we have to the budget. I think that's an appropriate item to then have public comment on. My suggestion would be that August 27th becomes a public comment section as part of our normal council. And we probably have a meeting on August
July
4th
27th?
to either go forward or not go forward.
July 27th?
July 27th, for the council, when that council resolution becomes, what you had the terminology, open house or public comment on proposed budget.
Town Hall.
Town hall.
Okay.
I'm sorry, on the August 4th, I think we would need to file by 5 PM on August
Yes.
4th. So if we're having, I'm just a little,
August 3rd.
okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, Councilmember Johnson.
Yeah, and then I also think that perhaps apart from, I think that there are different signals sent potentially to the public on how it is phrased in terms of an invitation for public comment. I think that including it as an item in an agenda means one thing versus holding a town hall, which is something else. And I would wonder if a town hall within the period before action could be taken, probably no later than August 3rd, there could be some sort of a more formal town hall type thing that's separate from a council agenda, special meeting or otherwise.
I got it. So next Wednesday meeting, hold August 3rd, and a town hall date is what I'm capturing as to-dos. And
It's a Monday by the chance.
And in that regard, with regard to the next Wednesday meeting, I would intend for city to heavily promote that so that we would try to attract as many people as we could to come and give us their views. I think that's what you're wanting to hear. Councilmember Johnson.
Yeah, I also heard, I thought pretty clearly from council, a desire to review the materials that have been provided tonight, that, this is a great overview, but a desire to sit with them a little bit, look at the numbers, run through it, come to terms with what's in there, et cetera. So I think that having that time leading up to next Wednesday would probably provide that.
If I could just share with the council, so we'll absolutely do that. That'll be available to you tomorrow. The number of slides, information that was prepared to potentially give you tonight was much greater than what you saw. What we ended up doing was paring this down to something that would give you, for each department, one page that was in summary, so you could at least see what the baseline was. That was the blue section. And then what the restore and modernize section was, that's the green that comes below it. So that's there, but there's a lot of detail behind that. So what I'm hoping, I've captured everything I could here. We'll go back to the recording and try and make sure everything that each of you brought up tonight is also on our list. But if you could please send an email with any information you would any information you would like, and we will try to pull all of that together for you. And then we can figure out how to get that to you. Then obviously you have that meeting next Wednesday. You can have subsequent meetings, but let us know what is the information that you would really like to get, and we'll get that to you as fast as we can, make that available as far as we can before next Wednesday. We'll see what we can do. One of the points I would make is we have one financial analyst. One, that's what the city has. So the amount of information that can be pulled together between now and then is very limited. That's one of the things I'm asking you for, is a lot more capability. But we will absolutely do everything we can. Some of it may already be there. Some of it was behind what was at your retreat. So let us know what you need and we'll be there. And then let us know where your questions will be. We'll have the directors there that need, that you might like to speak to directly and hear from. So we'll facilitate everything that you need. Let us know, please, what you need. Councilmember Holloway.
So I guess I'm concerned about, I'm really envisioning next Wednesday as a council working session. That if we get public and really staging for that public discussion, but if we do Wednesday, you said bring, advertise and try to get the public. I don't mind them coming in and listening in part, but if we're gonna go public comment, we may never get to what we need to do. So I really think that ought to be a working session for council to make motions for additions, deletions, or whatever to the budget as presented. And I would appreciate any underlying material that goes with these slides to be sent to us tomorrow, so that we can sit down and go through it and do that kind of thinking of what don't I like, what do I like, what am I missing? And have that discussion next Wednesday. If we don't focus in on that discussion, guys, we'll never get it done in this time frame.
Just mindful of the time, you probably need to bring your debate to close pretty quickly here. I'm now not clear on whether you want a public hearing part of that meeting or whether that should be a separate town hall. So I'm not quite clear how the council, what the will of the council is for these meetings. Councilmember Tessman.
Yes, I think to reconcile the conversation here, I think it sounds like the 22nd, Wednesday the 22nd, we could make a pure working session. This council can focus and can produce a balanced budget option, right, at current services, in addition to evaluating everything that was proposed tonight. We could have the normal council meeting on Monday, the 27th, and afford public comment. And then on the 29th, we could have a town hall, Wednesday, the 29th. So that the public basically has two opportunities to evaluate our proposal. And then we can action on the 3rd. That would be what I would propose. Yes, exactly.
If we action on third.
One way or the other.
Gotta do something on the third.
Yeah.
No
All right,
action is
mindful
action.
that you probably want a few minutes break before the regular council meeting. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, there being no further business on the council special meeting agenda, I will entertain a motion to adjourn the special meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Johnson, seconded by Councilmember Holloway. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. Motion carries and we are adjourned. Good evening and welcome to the July 13th, 2026 City Council regular meeting. Thank you for joining us. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Murphy,
Here.
Councilmember Watton,
Here.
Councilmember Holloway,
Here.
Councilmember Washington,
Here.
Councilmember Cotton,
Present.
Councilmember Testman,
Here.
Councilmember Johnson.
Here.
The roll is complete. We have a quorum.
For those who are here for tonight's public hearing, if you've planned to speak and have not yet signed up, there's a sign up just outside the front door. So be helpful if you sign up there. Now, please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilmember Cotton, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Holloway and seconded by Councilmember Washington. Is there any discussion? Seeing none? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The agenda is approved. I will now call to order the public hearing on the BESS moratorium. This is the time and place set for this hearing. On May 26, 2026, Council adopted the Battery Energy Storage System Moratorium. In the moratorium, Section 1 findings, subsection 1 through 3 states, battery energy storage system BESS facilities are an emerging land use that raise siting, safety, and operational considerations. The city's current development regulations do not specifically address BESS facilities. The city is undertaking the preparation and consideration of appropriate development regulations addressing siting and location, safety standards, design and operational characteristics, compatibility with surrounding land uses, necessary changes to city infrastructure to address potential industrial scale construction, maintenance, emergency response to BESS sited adjacent to the city, and evacuation requirements with estimated costs of and funding sources to same. Land use impact to housing targets mandated by King County. Section 5 of the moratorium adopts the work program, which includes consideration of public input. Within 60 days of adopting a moratorium, the city is required to conduct a public hearing. Tonight, we're conducting that public hearing and welcome comments on the adopted moratorium, substance of the work plan, or potential development regulations that the council might adopt coming out of the moratorium. In accordance with the council rules of procedure, comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. No action is anticipated at the close of the hearing. If council wishes to change the work plan, is recommended they give administration direction as to what they'd like to change so that attorneys can provide legal advice and so that a resolution may be drafted. The city clerk received written public comments from the following people, which have been provided to each of you. The following people provided the written public comments: Peggy Shepard, Caitlin Quinn, Neil Thibert, Jessica Moylan. These comments were distributed to council before the meeting. We will now open the floor to public testimony. And we have a list. First is Deb Lugley.
Lily.
You did not sign up for public comment? Thank you. Alma Gomez. Oh, this is a public hearing on BES only. So we can take that we'll take that public comment later in the agenda. Ecat Gomez, is that the same? Got it. Manuel Lewis? Same, got it. Peter Lugley. And please state your name and city of residence, and then we'll start the 3 minutes and you can monitor that there on the podium.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Peter Lully and I'm a Snoqualmie resident. Ordinance 1322 should produce a complete enforceable BES code, not open-ended study. Two recent developments show what that could include. First, Warwick, New York is advancing a comprehensive BES law after serious battery incidents. Its draft requires independent fire safety review, plume analysis, evacuation and fire plans, owner-funded drills, assessment of response gaps, periodic updates, current safety standards, and secure decommissioning. That is comparable in breadth to King County Ordinance 19824, but Warwick converts broad subjects into specific applications, operating and funding duties. Snoqualmie should not simply copy another community's moratorium draft, but it can adopt themes such as defining required evidence, independent review, pre-operation funding, and continuing obligations. For your information, I've sent a copy of the draft moratorium to the city clerk and council members earlier today. Oregon's Energy Facility Siting Council highlights a second issue. Oregon requires ownership disclosure, organizational expertise, evidence of financial capability, and restoration security. Regulators are reviewing the transfer of an approved 41 megawatt, 82 megawatt hour battery facility to a separate site certificate held by Schuttler Energy Storage LLC. Project-specific LLCs are common, but they may hold few assets beyond the project. Snoqualmie should require full ownership disclosure, proof of financial capacity, parent or affiliate guarantees where needed, insurance, and dedicated security for emergency response, cleanup, abandonment, decommissioning, and site restoration. Those protections must survive every transfer. Before the moratorium ends, the city should explore a Warwick-style framework and a clear answer to the Oregon question: who is legally, financially responsible when the city needs performance? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lugley. Alexandra Tabernacle.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Alexandra Tabor, and I'm a Snoqualmie resident. Ordinance 1322 reaches more than facilities inside city limits. It also addresses a battery facility subject to a city ordinance or using city infrastructure. The work program should define those connections. I asked the city to prepare a jurisdictional matrix covering every approval, agreement, service, and infrastructure nexus. It should include land use and building permits, right-of-way transmission or GenTie corridors, franchises, easements, roads and bridges, water and hydrant use, stormwater, construction access, emergency services, infrastructure additions, and contract amendments. For each item, the matrix should identify the responsible department, legal authority, required information, timing of review, and whether the city may impose conditions or recover costs. The city should also determine how related components will be reviewed together. A battery facility, transmission connection, road work, water demand, and emergency response needs to appear in separate applications, but their effects are connected. The regulation should prevent fragmentation that leaves each department evaluating only part of the burden. Planning, fire, building, fire, police, public works, emergency management, legal, and finance staff should review the same complete record. Before the moratorium ends, the city should know when its authority is triggered, who exercises it, and how every city-related impact will be evaluated and funded. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tabernacle. Dana Coburg.
Good evening, council members, mayor and staff. My name is Dana Coburn, a Snoqualmie resident of 26 years. Permanent regulations should begin by defining what is regulated. Residential backup batteries, commercial accessory systems, and principal use utility scale facilities should not be treated alike. The work program should establish classifications and thresholds based on power, capacity, stored energy, footprint, chemistry, voltage, enclosure type, and whether the system serves an on-site use or the grid. For each category, the code should state where the use is prohibited, where conditional review applies, where permits are required, and which standards govern. Utility scales facilities should receive coordinated review rather than disconnected approvals. The city should also adopt a completeness checklist. A utility scale application should not be complete while major questions are deferred. The initial record should include equipment and layout, representative fire test results, hazard analysis, noise and lighting studies, emergency and evacuation plans, infrastructure demands, environmental protections, construction routing, operating plans, decommissioning, and financial security. Because these applications are specialized, the city should retain independent experts at the applicant's expense. The code should establish a peer review, deposit, and allow additional information requests when analysis is incomplete or based on equipment different from what will be installed. Clear standards prevent premature review, reduce disputes, and tell applicants what must be demonstrated before the city decides. Thank you for your time. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Coburg. Nicole Wolfley, and as a reminder, please state your name and city of residence.
Good evening. My name is Nicole Wolfley, and I'm a Snoqualmie resident. The first siting question should not be whether a battery facility fits on a parcel. It should be whether the location is compatible with the community and whether the city can safely support it throughout its life. I asked the city to develop a risk-based siting framework mapping homes, schools, childcare, senior housing, medical and correctional facilities, evacuation routes, critical infrastructure, drinking water resources, streams and wetlands, steep slopes, flood hazards, wildfire exposure, seismic conditions, and land needed for housing and growth. The city should then identify where utility scale storage is prohibited, where conditional review is required, and where it can be compatible if performance standards are met. Setbacks should be evidence-based. Appropriate distance may depend on chemistry, ensure design, test results, topography, weather, adjoining uses, fire access, and consequences of a credible incident. A copied number should not replace local analysis. Compatibility also includes operation. The code should address noise, cooling equipment, transformers, lighting, screening, fencing, height, construction hours, truck routes, and cumulative effects of concentrated utility infrastructure. The city should determine whether facilities, buffers, access roads, and emergency planning zones would displace planned housing or interfere with infrastructure for future neighborhoods. The goal is a suitability map and measurable standards so siting decisions rest on evidence rather than assumptions made after an application arrives. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wolfley. Butch Vision. And a reminder, please state your name and city of residence.
Will do. My name is Butch Vision. I am a Snoqualmie resident. I am also a mechanical engineer with 30 years of experience in failure analysis. So that's kind of my world. The city should require safety evidence matching the facility actually proposed by a company. The test involving different cells, modules, enclosures, ventilation, or layout should not establish the safety of the equipment installed here. The work program should determine how the city will apply current fire and building codes, NFPA 855, UL 9540, and UL 9540A testing. The key question is whether the testing configuration represents the proposed cells, modules, racks, containers, detection, ventilation, suppression strategy, spacing, and electrical arrangements. Applications should include a complete technical report for independent review, not only summaries provided by the company. Review should address thermal runaway propagation, combustible gas accumulation, explosions, fire spread, emergency shutdowns, stranded energy, emergency and electrical cooling failures, flooding, any seismic events such as earthquakes, sensor and communication failure, and external fire exposures. The city should also require a hazard mitigation analysis and failure modes review, identifying safeguards, detection, response actions, and residual risk. Approval should not permit later substitutions without review. A material change in chemistry, supplier enclosure, fire protection, software controls, capacity, layout should trigger a review. And when needed, that should require new testing or permit modification if things actually change. Battery technology will evolve. City regulations should therefore be tied to verified performance and enforceable change control throughout the facility's life. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vision. Tanya Kohlberg. As a reminder, please state your name and city of residence.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Tanya Coburn, and I'm a Snoqualmie resident and have been for the last 26 years. I am not a mechanical engineer, just. My name is Tanya Coburn. I am a resident. A site-specific emergency plan is essential, but a paper plan does not prove the city can carry it out. The work program should include an independent assessment of responsible capability. That assessment should involve fire, police, public works, emergency management, dispatch, neighboring agencies, and mutual aid partners. It should evaluate staffing, travel time, access, command structure, staging, hazardous material capability, respiratory protection, thermal imaging, gas detection, water, communications, and ability to sustain a long incident. The city should determine what real-time information responders need, including system status, alarms, temperatures, state of change, isolation, shutdown status, and access to a representative. Responders must know how damaged equipment and stranded energy will be managed after the emergency ends. Training should be independent and reoccurring, including chemistry-specific instruction, site tours, tabletop exercises, and drills. The code should specify frequency, plan updates, readiness documentation, and who pays for staff time, equipment, and exercises. The city should also define when operation must stop. If critical detection, ventilation, communications, access, or shutdown systems are impaired, it needs authority to require correction or suspend operation. No facility should operate until agencies confirm the plan is realistic, responders are trained, equipment and mutual aid are available, and costs are funded. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kohlberg. Georgia North. Just a reminder, please state your name and city of residence.
Thank you for the reminder. Good evening. My name is Georgia North, and I'm a Snoqualmie resident. Emergency planning must establish how officials decide whether to evacuate, shelter in place, close road.
Point of order, Mayor. I'm just concerned about the timer.
Thank you, sorry.
Oh,
Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry,
Pause.
go ahead. Sorry
Rewind.
for the interruption. We
That's
goofed
okay.
there. Sorry.
I should have looked for the green light. Emergency planning has to establish how officials decide whether to evacuate, shelter in place, close roads, issue warnings, and when to allow people to return. The city should require site-specific consequence modeling based on proposed equipment, credible incidents, local topography, and weather. That analysis should identify monitoring locations and clear decision thresholds. An evacuation distance borrowed from another incident is not a local plan. Transportation analysis should test school arrival or dismissal, weekend traffic, winter weather, flooding, wildfire, construction, a blocked road, or another simultaneous emergency. It should account for schools, childcare facilities, senior communities, people with limited mobility, visitors, and facilities that cannot quickly self-evacuate. The city should determine how warnings will be delivered if cell service or electricity fails, who may issue each order, and how consistent instructions will reach the public. Environmental response belongs in the same plan. The applicant should demonstrate the water required, its source, and how fire water or runoff will be contained. The plan should address storm drain isolation, air and water sampling, temporary storage, disposal, cleanup, and criteria for reopening roads and reoccupying buildings. Baseline environmental data should be collected before operation begins. The code should require measurable decision criteria, identified responsible parties, and applicant-funded resources. These questions should not be answered for the first time during an emergency. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. North. Jim Spolt? You'll have to help us with your last name. And please remember to state your city of residence.
Certainly. My name is Jim Chesfold, and I'm a Snoqualmie resident. Ordinance 1322 directs the city to study infrastructure costs and funding sources. That fiscal work should be detailed as much as the technical work. The city should identify every one-time and continuing public cost a utility scale battery facility could create, including costs. Initial costs may include planning and legal review, independent engineering and environmental review, fire code review, inspections, road and bridge studies, construction, monitoring, water or hydrant improvements, stormwater controls, communications, emergency planning, training, and specialized equipment. Continuing costs may include annual inspections, refresher training and drills, equipment replacement, monitoring, enforcement, mutual aid coordination, public communication, and maintenance of facility-related infrastructure. Extraordinary response, environmental testing, cleanup and recovery must also be addressed. The regulation should distinguish among funding tools, including application deposits, reimbursement agreements, consultant accounts, infrastructure payments, annual fees, insurance, bonds, letter of credit, and separate emergency response and cleanup security. The city should not assume an initial construction payment covers the entire 30-year obligation. Estimates should account for inflation, replacement cycles, equipment changes, staff time, and ownership transfers. Every application should include a city-reviewed fiscal impact statement identifying services and infrastructure used, life cycle cost, and the enforceable source of payment. The principle is simple. A public facility should not create, a private facility should not create an unfunded public obligation. The applicant, not taxpayers, should pay the full and continuing costs of regulation and response. Thank you.
Thank you. Katie Crislip. Reminder to state your name and city of residence for us.
Hi, my name is Katie Crislip, and I'm a Snoqualmie resident of 11 years. The city's responsibility will not end when construction is complete. Regulations should govern commissioning, operation, modification, ownership transfer, shutdown, and decommissioning. Before operation, the city should require acceptance testing and confirmation that project equipment, associated facilities, and mitigation measures, including stormwater facilities, setbacks, and buffers, match the approved design. The city should also approve an operations and maintenance plan. During operation, the owner should provide operating and maintenance records, current emergency contacts, updated safety information, and confirmation that detection, ventilation, communications, shutdown, and fire protection systems function. The code should require prompt reporting of fires, thermal events, gas alarms, shutdowns, significant failures, and near misses, including causes, corrective actions, and needed plan or permit changes. Battery augmentation and repowering may change stored energy, spacing, chemistry, fire behavior, and response assumptions. Material, hardware, or software changes should require review. Ownership transfers should not weaken protections. Every successor should not assume all permit conditions, reporting duties, emergency obligations, financial security, and decommissioning responsibilities before the transfer. The regulation should define abandonment and prolonged shutdown. Decommissioning plans should cover disconnection, removal, transportation, recycling or disposal, damaged equipment, soil and water testing, site restoration, and emergency decommissioning. Financial security should be independently estimated, updated, and available to the city if the responsible party fails to act. Safe siting requires life cycle accountability through final restoration. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chrislip. David North.
My name's David North, King County resident since 1978. Snoqualmie is my home since 2014. My piece to support all the others that have spoken before is to make 2 points. A, we would make sure that you embark on a transparent process and have a clear exit strategy or criteria so that when we get to that point, we have a clear exit strategy. Transparency. The city could and should publish all its schedules, consultant scopes, technical reports, jurisdiction comparisons, any staff memoranda, public comments, draft code language, and explanations on how an input affected the proposal. And we, the residents, concerned citizens, should receive clear summaries and complete reports. The review should also include the jurisdictions that permit utility scale storage, those that restrict it or have revised rules after incidents that may have occurred. The city should identify what worked, what was difficult to administer, what fits our Snoqualmie's geographic unique needs, staffing, infrastructure, housing obligations, and response capacity. The process also should include, as mentioned before, planning, building, fire, police, emergency management, public works, water, transportation, legal, financial staff, plus neighboring agencies, unincorporated King County, serving providers, experts, and the public. Independent expertise could and should be used where, should there be lacking staff, specialized knowledge, expertise, experts should be called in. When we get to the point before lifting this moratorium, which we hope you will pass, the council should find that all the studies are complete. Permanent regulations have been adopted. Application and peer review procedures are ready. Emergency response, infrastructure, and cost recovery mechanisms are established. Enforcement of all that authority is clear. Life cycle and decommissioning protections are funded, and staff, our city council staff, can administer that code. The city should also schedule future review of technology codes and incidents and experience resolved as mentioned before. We believe we understand this moratorium is neither an approval nor a rejection of the proposal. However, it is a commitment to decide under the rules before which an application creates pressure for exceptions.
Mr. North, if you could conclude your comments, please.
One more sentence. We ask you, the council, to complete all this work fully, with integrity, and with the utmost care.
Thank you, Mr. North. Neil Thiebert?
My name is Neil Thiebert, and I'm a resident of Snoqualmie. Battery energy storage systems are a new technology with serious safety and environmental concerns. As such, governments have not yet caught up with the need for land use planning processes and regulations to ensure that these functions will not cause harm to people, property, utilities, public safety agencies, or the environment. Best use electricity from the local grid for cooling fans, which exhale heat to their surroundings. They produce noise from both the fans and from transformers in each container. In the event of a fire, the fans would blow toxic chemicals into the surrounding environment. The surrounding containers would be doused with millions of gallons of water to prevent them from overheating. Where will this water come from, and what happens to the runoff? BESS failures can release air pollution even without a fire through venting, leakage, or thermal events. Lithium-ion BESS contain toxic materials such as lithium, cobalt, nickel, and PFAS. Even without a fire, thermal runaway or other failure modes can cause electrolyte leakage and venting of flammable gases such as hydrogen and methane, release of odorless and colorless toxic vapors like hydrogen fluoride gas or other battery-specific emissions, and ash or particulate matter from damaged cells, which can contain residual toxic chemicals. Jupiter says that avoiding proximity to neighborhoods or sensitive areas is nearly impossible on the west side of the state. A PSE study found no suitable locations in King County. The answer is obvious. Don't build BESS facilities in King County until these issues can be resolved and suitable regulations are put in place. A moratorium is needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thiebert. Christine Malcho.
Regular public.
Okay, great. It's Malchow, isn't it? Thank you, sorry. Peggy Shepard.
One of the things that I'm very concerned about is that people don't know what's going on right now, except for those that have been actively involved in trying to push back on the best proposal that was withdrawn. I talked to the manager of the Snoqualmie Hotel, and he's under the assumption that it's dropped and it's not coming back. I know that sometimes when we have public hearings, we do mailings to all the residents. And I think that for this topic, we really need US mailing to everyone on when we're going to be having another public hearing about this topic. And I know that the moratorium is a time to pause and to study whether this is going to be safe or not. But I think I'd like to hear some conversation about what the opportunities are for putting a full ban on just in our area, hearing the last speaker talking about how they don't have any place in King County that's not near residents. So in 2011, there was a contract when we incorporated where the substation is. And there is an agreement there that we will allow them to go ahead and be annexed and allow them not to go through their full environmental study. And so I think we need to look back at our history of what happened when we actually allowed us to have that substation. And so anyway, the understanding that I get from that document is that they have to get our approval in order to have any intertie into the substation. So I'd like to see us review that.
And this thing is so large, and you hear all of these people who are extremely well-educated and they understand what they're talking about. And so for myself, my experience, I worked at a company that manufactures switches for nuclear power plants. And I recall having drawings that are this big for a part that was a contact for a tiny switch. And the amount of certification that is required to do that, you had to know what mountain the metal was coming from. So I'm not seeing any of that here. We were never told which battery they're even considering. And I know we're not supposed to talk about a current application, but that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Shepherd. Are there any other people in attendance who would like to speak during this public hearing on the BESS moratorium? If so, please approach and state your name and city of residence.
Sure. Hi, my name is John Schrader. Live in Snoqualmie. Been here since 2015. I'm going to rephrase some of my comments from the Health and Safety Commission meeting a couple weeks ago. But the first thing I want to say is thank you to the council. 4 months ago, I think there was a massive amount of frustration with the community and the council not seeing eye to eye. I think that that's changed considerably over the course of the last few months. I think that there have been some very positive steps being taken. The fact we're here discussing a moratorium right now is very positive. The insurance and liability ordinance that was put forth last week is fantastic. And the dedicated resources and funding to respond to the permit are also fantastic. So I feel like the council has responded to the community, and I appreciate that. The second part is with the newly discovered or recently communicated fact that one of the parcels in the overall plan for the Cascadia Ridge project actually sits on the city of Snoqualmie land. It would be really good to understand how that impacts this and what the city and the council's planned response is, or how you can leverage that in our favor. It feels like there's things that could be done there, and we'd rather see that be done transparently in front of us, as opposed to behind closed doors. And so hopefully part of the working sessions that have been put together will address that, and we can learn a little bit more about it. And a big thanks to everybody else who showed up and talked. I think that this community is incredibly well educated, has taken a lot of time to learn about it, and spent a lot of time down here conversing with you all. My personal belief is that lithium ion technology for BESS facilities is an emerging and unstable technology. It has no business around our residences. It has no business around our community. And it's also like verging on obsolete. This is an incredibly fast moving sector and market, and there's no reason for us to invest now. The only reason that we're looking to invest now, or that people are trying to invest now, is to take advantage of what is basically a profit grab that's putting all of the risk directly into our community. So with that, I think that a moratorium in and of itself is a fantastic first step. We should evaluate other technologies. We should evaluate more complex solutions to meet a very challenging and complex grid problem in the future. This is not the only way to address it. And no matter what's being told to us through King County or Jupiter or PSE, there's other better ways to go about this process. The ordinance that King County put forth actually has done us a big disservice. If anything, it has told the permitting department that diligence has been done on this to protect the communities that they're looking to establish BESS facilities in. It couldn't be further from the truth, and $1 million liability cap is an absolute joke. We as communities need to protect ourselves. King County will not do it. So it's on us. It's on you guys. We're here to help. The last thing that I'll say is, if you look at the cleanup processes that are going on right now, we're talking years without full restoration. The estuary in Moss Landing is, has several millimeters of hard metals that are heavy metals that sit across the entire estuary. That won't be repaired. The wells that sit next to this facility will become unusable very quickly if there's ever a problem. So we can't make the decision twice. If it happens, it happens, and we're going to pay the price. It's up to us to protect ourselves. So I appreciate your help in it. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Schrader. Are there any other speakers who would like to speak during the public hearing on the BESS moratorium? Seeing no further testimony, I will now close the public hearing. Next item on the agenda is the swearing in. Tonight we will swear in Andrea Leonard as our city administrator. City clerk, will you please administer the oath?
Yeah, the way she keeps moving up.
We keep moving.
All right. Okay, so I, Andrea Leonard,
I, Andrea Leonard,
having been duly appointed by the mayor
having been duly appointed by the mayor
and confirmed by the city council of the city of Snoqualmie
and confirmed by the city council of the city of Snoqualmie
to the office of city administrator for the city of Snoqualmie,
to the office of city administrator for the city of Snoqualmie,
do solemnly swear that I will faithfully and impartially
do solemnly swear that I will faithfully and impartially
perform the duties of my office
perform the duties of my office
as prescribed by law
as prescribed by law
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
and that I will support and maintain the ordinances
and that I will support and maintain the ordinances
of the city of Snoqualmie
of the city of Snoqualmie
and the laws and constitution of the state of Washington and the United States of America.
and the laws and constitution of the state of Washington and the United States of America.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Shake hands, like. All right, awesome.
Okay, at this time, we will provide time for public comment on items not on tonight's agenda. Comments on agenda items will be taken during the discussion of each item. Public comments are taken in person or in writing that may be submitted in person, by mail, or email to cityclerk@snoqualmiewa.gov. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes each. Please come forward to the podium and state your name and city of residence for the record. Please direct your comments to the council as a whole and not to individual members. Council members, staff, and I will listen to your comments and consider your input, but will not respond during the meeting. With that, I think Alma Gomez.
Good evening. My name is Alma Gomez and I'm a Snoqualmie resident. I'm here tonight to talk about consumer protection and the actual cost of fighting for accountability. My spouse and I lost $20,000 to a fraudulent organized scheme. And this coming Thursday, I'm heading back to court to pursue my $10,000 claim because the defendant failed to show up to court last time. They might be trying to dodge the legal system, but we are going to go ahead and move forward. And so far, this fight has cost us about $3,000 out of pocket just for legal expenses, media outreach, and trying to support other local folks who were defrauded. I actually ran for city council previously in part to bring more attention to exactly this kind of fraud. Finally, I'm here tonight also on behalf of Danny, our polydactyl cat. He has extra toes and big eyes that unfortunately don't translate over to the public comment camera. He is currently trying to crowdfund a $2,000 surgery. He has a mysterious spot on his chin that he needs to get looked at. And his neighborhood cat friends are also getting sick. So it's a tough time for him to be an influencer, but Danny remains committed to transparency, community support, and keeping fraudsters accountable. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Gomez. Kat Gomez?
Good evening. My name is Ekaterina, and I am a resident of Snoqualmie. I am here tonight to address a matter of consumer protection and predatory schemes impacting our community. Recently, my spouse and I were victims of a major fraudulent organized scheme involving a Seattle City Council candidate who took $20,000 of our funds under a false pretense. We refused to back down. After a months-long legal battle, I am incredibly proud to share a major milestone. At our King County hearing, the judge ruled in favor by granting an initial default status against the defendant who chose to flee the country rather than face accountability. I am sharing this victory to remind our council and our neighbors that while predatory schemes can happen right here in our backyard, our legal systems do work when we stand up and fight back. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gomez. Emmanuel Lewis.
Hi, my name is Emmanuel Lewis. I'm here visiting from Dallas, Texas. I was here several months ago. I previously worked for the Dallas County Sheriff Department. I was the officer that spoke up on the conditions before and during the pandemic. I received congestive heart failure and discoloration work with the department. I testified in federal court and filed several lawsuits. My efforts have been featured in the media and on podcasts. I'm in support of my friends. One is Taylor Swift fan, also known as a Swiftie. She also loves K-pop Demon Hunters, and they were conned out at $20,000. We have a case number filed with the Snoqualmie Police Department. More victims have come forward, recently one for $40,000. The alleged con artist was fined by the Public Disclosure Commission for the misuse of campaign funds while she was running for City Council of Seattle for housing assistance. The case is currently active. I'm coming again to bring my concern to the matter. We went to the North Bend Town Hall where the police chief talked about the e-bike dangers, but also the rampant fraud in the area. My friends need a lot of support, emotional, but also financial support. They seek rental assistance because they worry about having housing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Christy Malchow.
Christy Malchow, Falls City, the city that is not. Good evening, Mayor and council members. I am here tonight to ask the city to reconsider the portion of the current sign enforcement guidance that allows the city to remove signs from the public right-of-way based on whether the abutting property owner has given consent. I understand the city's responsibility to regulate the right-of-way for public safety, rules about medians, roundabouts, intersections, sightline traffic, control devices, and signs projecting into travel lanes are objectively safety rules. Those are legitimate areas for city regulation. But the abutting property owner consent requirement is different. An adjacent property owner may own the property next to the right-of-way. In some cases, they may have maintenance responsibilities or other limited interests connecting to that right-of-way. But they do not have the general regulatory jurisdiction over speech in the public right-of-way. That is public space controlled by the city for public purposes and paid for by your taxpayers. The city should not delegate control over political or issue speech in that space to a private property owner. If a sign is unsafe, obstructive, placed in a median too close to an intersection, or interfering with traffic visibility, the city should enforce that rule uniformly, but whether a sign is allowed in the public right-of-way should not turn on whether the adjacent property owner approves of the message, the speaker, the campaign, or the issue. That creates a private veto over public speech. It also raises First Amendment concerns. Political and issue signs are core protected speech. In Reed v. Town of Gilbert, Arizona, the United States Supreme Court made clear that sign regulations must be handled carefully and cannot regulate speech based on content or practical distinctions that invite unequal treatment. Even if the city's intent is safety or aesthetics, the rule must be clear, objective, content neutral, and narrowly applied. This consent requirement is not an objective safety standard. It is a permission system. It risks inconsistent enforcement and gives private individuals effective control over speech in public space. I'm asking the city to pause enforcement of the abutting property owner consent provision, send the portion back for a specific legal review, and revise the sign code through Planning Commission and Council so that rules are based on public safety, not private approval. The city can protect safety without giving adjacent property owners veto power over political or issue speech in the public right-of-way. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Malchow. Is there any other, are there any other people who would like to speak during public comment for items not on the agenda? All right, hearing none, public comment is now closed. Moving on to the consent agenda. Consent agenda contains approval of the city council meeting minutes dated June 22nd, 2026, approval of the claims report dated July 13th, 2026, and agenda bill 26-041 regarding resolution 1751, coalition of small police agencies ILA addendum. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Washington and seconded by Councilmember Johnson. Is there any discussion? Excuse me. Is there any public comment for items on the consent agenda? Seeing none, is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. The consent agenda is passed unanimously. Moving on to committee reports. Public Safety, under Public Safety Committee, we have Best Ordinance Discussion. Councilmember Watton.
Thank you, Mayor. At last Monday's meeting, I introduced an ordinance that addresses the liability risks and certain requirements around making sure that depending on the size of the installation would require a certain amount of liability insurance. And it's tiered at up to 10 megawatts as tier 1, tier 2 being more than 10 megawatts and up to 50 megawatts, and greater than 50 megawatts is tier 3. And the idea is that we as a council do not have rules, clear rules, and a ordinance brought forward by a council member. And we have to do that in the public setting so that we're consistent with the Open Public Meetings Act. And so it was the introduction of this ordinance that occurred last week. And the recommendation, for unanimous recommendation from the committee, was to pass it on for first reading here. So it comes down to a question, and I understand that there's a concern from the administration as far as the form that it was presented in. But we did receive testimony from 13 individuals, plus we received written testimony, which the following day, since we did not have staff present during the meeting, I did drive those here to City Hall about 10 o'clock in the morning to make sure that those are included, as well as there was a request to make sure that the documents leading up to that would be included in the previous minutes, and we amended the minutes during our meeting. So we hope that the administration will follow through and make sure that those are included. And I did forward that by email. And the challenge for us is this, is it has to be a public process. It's not something that we can discuss behind closed doors. And typically ordinances come before our committees that come through the administration and the staff. In this case, this was proposed by me, reviewed by our committee in open session. We had copies available. And by the way, if you'd like a copy of it, please reach out to me. I'll make sure that you have it. But included in our proposal was commercial general liability. There are 16 states that require more strict liability insurance on best facilities than King County. King County is known that the cap is $1 million. As the chair of public safety, that's a concern because an incident, a thermal runaway, will cause more than $1 million in resources in the course of one day. This is a $130 million facility that's being proposed, and they have the option of applying to us for annexation. So if we don't have the rules in place, we're doing a disservice to our community. And that was kind of the reasoning behind the committee passing this forward. So tier 1, general liability insurance that we're proposing is $5 million. In this case, we're proposing $50 million, not $1 million. But beyond that, we're also proposing environmental impairment liability. Tier 1, $5 million. Tier 2, $15 million. Tier 3, $25 million. That is not addressed by King County. The next one is additional required coverages. Business interruption coverage, sufficient to cover on-site recovery and restoration. 2, automobile liability for owned and non-owned vehicles of $2 million, double what King County has as general liability requirement. And then workers' compensation, employers' liability is required by Washington law. The next thing, emergency response requirement. This is where King County pretty much leaves it up to the developer. And we're saying that you have to coordinate on pre-operation. We have to work with our local fire department and jurisdictions. Annual emergency response funding. We've included it in this ordinance. Again, King County is silent. Hazardous materials and specialized equipment support. The operator shall provide $1 million in apparatus support for hazmat detection, monitoring, and response equipment needed. Access and monitoring. That they should provide real-time system monitoring. And then decommissioning, and this is a big one. What has happened when there has been thermal runaway incidents? The responsible party simply exits by doing a bankruptcy. We are held responsible. Other communities, 16 states, have required decommissioning bonds or other means to ensure our safety. So that is kind of the intent of the ordinance that we put forward, and we're asking for legal counsel and the administration to acknowledge the fact that we've moved this forward and that we would like to make it a priority, knowing that we have many things to address, but this is something that's critical that we can take care of now, and we shouldn't wait. So that is the discussion we're here tonight to have in the open public. And as we can improve upon this, we are certainly, this is a starting point, but we need to take action to protect our community.
Councilmember Johnson.
Yeah, and thank you for all that background and for going through kind of the main highlights of the intent. And I really appreciate council stepping up to start to get some stuff going, get the ball rolling with regard to some of the things that are asked about in the moratorium, along with some other issues that have come up along the way that are kind of tangentially related. Where I saw this being on the F&A committee, which sets the agenda for the council meetings, was that this was at the point where we would discuss, hey, what are the merits of this and which parts do we feel like need to move forward? Maybe all of it can start moving forward, but it wasn't at a point where it was ready for a first reading. So the purpose of a first reading is that we think that this is pretty much there. It's pretty much good to go. And then we have the second reading, which is as some people have called the U.S. Senate, the cooling saucer. That 2-week period is kind of like the cooling saucer, where we're able to just sit for a second and think, do we really mean it? Allow the public to come back and go, I can't believe you guys missed this. This is a super important thing. But it's not supposed to be that the second reading is for going through and completely doing a rewrite, especially on the fly, prior to legal review. So that's why F&A, I shouldn't speak for all of F&A, but at least for myself, that was why on F&A, I took the direction that I did with regard to setting this on the agenda and its current placement. There is also a huge issue that it isn't written in the form of an ordinance where it identifies what part of the code is being stricken, perhaps. I don't know what would be, but if something was being stricken, you have to identify that. Or if you're going to add code, you also have to identify where in the code you're going to add it. And there's language related to, insert the following in this particular part of the chapter. And that's something that a legal review would help to identify that hadn't happened yet. And that's something that I certainly didn't feel comfortable with editing on the fly. And I don't know if my fellow council members were prepared to do that tonight, but those things would have to occur. As it stands, as written, this would effectively be a resolution saying that we believe these things should be, but it doesn't actually put it into practice. To do that, you have to actually amend the code. And there are ways to do that. There's certain language. And I have certain concerns with regard to some things that may be related to land use, which maybe they're not, maybe they are. If they are, then they probably have to go through Planning Commission first. And that's just because of the Growth Management Act. That's state level. We can't override GMA if that's the case. And I'm not claiming it is. I'm saying legal review would identify those things if that were the case. But there are a lot of things here that I think definitely create a wonderful launching off point. I don't want to go through literally every single one bullet point by bullet point, but here's a good example. Under Section 5, Emergency Response Requirements, subsection A, Pre-Operation Coordination, sub number 2, however the legalese is supposed to be said for that. It says the operator shall provide detailed emergency action plans, thermal runaway mitigation procedures, and facility-specific hazard data sheets. Cool. Which ones and how much? Right, because you leave it just with that statement and that's all that's been fleshed out in terms of what actually becomes law, then a detailed emergency plan could be a couple of sentences. I don't know. We have to kind of lay that out. And I would hope that these are the kinds of things that, and that's just one example. There are a few things I could point out along the way that are similar to that, that I would hope that the Public Safety Committee would hash out and get into some specifics for. Just one other thing I'll mention is with regard to enforcement and penalties. It says the city may pursue civil penalties, injunction relief, or abatement as authorized by the Snoqualmie Municipal Code. Which parts? Which penalties? Which relief? What abatement in the Snoqualmie Municipal Code? I don't know either, but clearly the text doesn't yet either. And so those are the kinds of things I would hope we get fleshed out. And then once that's ready, then I think it would be appropriate to bring this to us as a first reading. But at this stage, I think it's absolutely appropriate to bring in the council for this kind of feedback, however specific council wants to be. And I thought that I heard in the discussion at Public Safety that the chair was kind of leaning that direction at first, and then the conversation went a little bit different after that. But it sounded like the chair had some similar thoughts before being moved forward to council.
Councilmember Holloway.
I agree with many considerations you have there. However, I got to pull us back to our jurisdiction. So is it a proposal to apply these things in consideration of future annex? Is it proposal to apply these things in consideration of future best facilities? If it's that, we have a moratorium action in place, and this should fold into that and be a result of that, what we, the city, propose as insurance liability things for best facilities under our consideration. Okay, so, and we got a moratorium, we've got a schedule, we go through that. So I'm not sure why I need the second action of this resolution. Third, the references to King County are interesting, marginally germane. We can do further enforcement than what King County does. We can't do less, but that is the germanity, if I can use that word, I may be making one up, of that discussion. Okay. What Texas does can be interesting, but we have to make our own decision and our own things of this. So I'm struggling of why is this not under the umbrella of the moratorium for those considerations? Or is this an action in consideration of future annexation in which we have an annexation requirement that says you're a best facility, therefore for you to be annexed, you must have these things. So what's the action? What's the jurisdiction? Again, how's it in code from a result? So I don't know what to do with it.
Councilmember Washington.
Yeah, so sitting on F&A, my two concerns were it hadn't gone through a legal review, and because it is a land use, it hadn't gone to planning commission. With that said, is there a possibility to get it circulated to the council? Because I'll speak for myself, but
didn't really like that.
Is it?
In your email.
Was it? Okay. I didn't see it in the packet, so.
It wasn't in the packet.
Okay, it was in
Rob
the
sent
email.
it out.
Okay.
It was not in the packet.
No, but it's an email.
It's in.
You all received an email with
Okay.
that material.
Okay.
Sorry, Councilmember Tessman.
Yes, Councilmember, to the question posed by Councilmember Holloway, I can tell you part of the discussion we had focused in committees focused specifically on that question. What is the goal of this proposed ordinance? And it was focused. It had two purposes. One was to prepare for potential annexation requests, like you pointed out, and then two was to essentially provide some leadership to the other municipalities in King County, given what we felt were gaps in the King County code. Now, I think you raise a fair point. Even with the annexation piece, could that not be incorporated into the moratorium work stream? Potentially, right? But we saw it as, I think it's fair to say the committee as a whole shared the belief that this was an opportunity to address it in a time sensitive manner.
Councilmember Cotton.
Thank you, Mayor. So I do think also the thoughts were coming forward too, where we were hoping to get, what city staff to have this go to. And, would the legal review take priority? Would planning commission take priority? And trying to figure out like, okay, what gaps do we need to fill in by who, and how long would that take? And so I think there was some concern where, we obviously feel this is an expeditious matter that we want to move forward. So being able to get information, since council doesn't per se have staff that can work on these types of things, we're trying to, or Councilmember Watton, come up with a great way of utilizing AI to help move some of these things forward in a timely fashion. So that's part of the theory behind it. So what would be next steps is really what we're looking forward.
Councilmember Johnson.
Yeah, I just want to mention in terms of the timing issue, the good news is that we do already have a moratorium in place that I believe is 12 months. And so there wouldn't be an urgency in getting this done since it's code, it applies to the city. Therefore, moratorium would cover these things. And I think that that's largely what the moratorium does. It does give us that time so we can flesh out these issues and really nail them down without having to just, go at it right this exact instant. That said, the fact that the council member did bring something forward that we can build off of, nothing wrong with that. It's just we do have the time to build off of it and do everything as needed.
Councilmember Murphy.
So I'll talk the merits and I'll talk the process. I think really applaud Councilmember Watton for moving this, taking the initiative and moving forward on this. I think these fill some really glaring holes in, I think, just general best regulations that we've seen here locally and then around the country to make sure that we're protecting our residents and we're protecting our taxpayers. I think that's what it comes down to, right? Ensuring that we have accountability from anyone who wants to do business in our city, right? Where there could be external impact. So I think the merits are really good here. I think on the process, I think this sounds like something that could be folded in perhaps to the work plan. I think I would put this as a perhaps a top priority in that work plan as that begins to take shape, right? But I think this is a critical piece of that, and I really thank Councilmember Watton for bringing this forward. And the last thing I'll mention is something for the council to consider as we kind of move forward through the year is when we have policy proposals of this nature, what is the best process to surface that? What is the best process for the council to work its will on these types of things that may not originate from the administration, that may originate from council members? So I think this is a great forum for us to kind of continue that. So yeah, that's all I have.
Councilmember Holloway.
If I can break this up into some actionable items. So I do believe you have a chance but we have no jurisdiction on King County. You do have a chance for a letter for us to consider to King County to say that the proposed liability levels that they currently have are probably insufficient. So you might look at that. I think there is a further question that says, and this may be executive session discussion, does the moratorium apply to future annexation decisions involving best facilities? And we may have a conversation later that says, should it? We'll see. But then third, I do think your recommendations ought to be folded into the moratorium considerations to come out the other end, that we do have at the end of that appropriate liability levels coming out.
Councilmember Watton.
And I deeply appreciate everyone's input. It is, this issue raises one thing, and that's our council rules. It's an opportunity for us to review that because policy is set by the council and carried out by the administration. And we don't have a clear process for bringing things forward as council members. And we have to do that in Open Public Meeting Act. We can't share like email. I can't sit down with 2 or 3 of you and just kind of have a conversation without it being in the public view. And we've had problems in the past when that has happened, with previous councils. But it's how do we begin that dialogue? And this is a perfect example. We begin with it being introduced for the first time. One thing that I would like to see is that when we receive comments from the public, a couple things. I went back and reviewed our video, and I think we need to reconsider turning the video back on so everybody can see who's in the council speaking. They can see us, but I think it's important to share that. And I know that there was some overstepping or overuse of the video in the past.
Councilmember Watton,
Yes.
that's a topic that's being separately discussed.
Right.
You could keep your comments germane to this topic.
So, but my point is this, we're learning something through this process, and the process needs to be open, that the comments that we receive need to be available, that I did submit copies from Monday night's meeting. I hope they're included in our minutes. We've asked for minutes to be updated with other information that was shared in a previous committee meeting. When we
Councilmember
talk
Watton,
about
do you have comments related to the
but
best?
it is. It's related to this because we have a duty to the citizens to be transparent in the
Councilmember Watton,
process.
I'm ruling your comments out of order. Councilmember Johnson.
So in terms of process, I think a lot of the process went very well of what I saw coming through public safety. There's a council member who has an ordinance, brings it to the committee, and then the committee decides, is this something that is actually a priority? And once they do, then the administration can take that and say, okay, this isn't just one council member trying to use up staff time, because the fact is we don't have the staff time for that. I could spend 30 seconds writing something up and asking the mayor to have staff do it that would take a week's worth of work plus, right? So I think that bring it to the committee says, yeah, this actually is important. That said, there will be a broader discussion about the council rules and procedures at FNA. So I think that the rest of that piece of the discussion about the process will be better served by that discussion. We've had so many things. That's been one of the things. There was a council member brought that up a few months ago, and there's just been a lot going on there, and we would absolutely love to get to that in FNA in the near future with regard to council rules and procedures.
Councilors, I could remind you of a couple things or inform you of a couple things. First, this topic that was just brought up about comments and video of comments, that was discussed at the most recent FNA meeting. At FNA's request, you all received an email with the supporting materials that they discussed. I think is their intention to continue that discussion in the near future. With regard to annexation, understand that you, the council, decides whether to annex property. You can say yes, and you can say no. That is your decision. So the absence, if something was on a piece of property, if you did not want that property annexed, then you would say no. So you have that power right now. The materials that were put forward by the chair of public safety and were discussed by the Public Safety Committee and received significant public comment have been sent to legal counsel for creation of a potential legislative path and ordinance. So to the extent that that's something that might fold into the existing BES ordinance process that we're going through, fine. Some of the items that were brought up appear to be beyond the scope of that, so they might be appropriate for a separate ordinance. So we've asked for that to be brought back to you with sort of an explanation of here's the items, here's how that could move forward. So I expect probably within the next week and a half that we'll have something solid back on that you can consider further. As far as the general topic, if it's a little off topic because you discussed it, much of the legislation that you have considered this year came to you because one of you council members came and asked us to develop something on that, and so we did. For example, there is a whole process going on around data centers that you directed to have happen. That was brought up by one of the council members. There's been multiple of those. So when you ask us to develop something, we'll do that. If it's a significant piece of work, we might come back and say, hey, we need to get council's sense of this before we commit the resources. But just to be clear, we have one city attorney, and the regular workload completely precludes any work on BESS. That work is completely outsourced. Now, as it turns out, we likely would have done that anyway because of the expertise involved in this area. So, but in any event, the draft, the materials that were provided on this ordinance discussion have all gone to legal counsel, and they are working on it. And as I said, I expect more back to you within the next week and a half or so. Councilmember Johnson.
Just wanted to give a brief reminder from our council retreat when the city attorney was presenting current spending levels for the various tasks within that part of the administration. The lowest value number was council concerns because there's just so much other stuff. And when we bring something ourselves, that just doesn't rise to the same level as all the other things that our one city attorney has to do. So I just wanted to remind us of that.
But if I could just add to that, we do contract out a lot of our legal work, not just BESS related, but other legal work. So when you ask for something to be done, to be clear, I don't say no. I say yes, and we'll get it going. Or I say, you know what, I would like to see a more full council discussion and direction from the council to take that up. Those are the only two paths. So please let us know things you want worked on, and we'll continue to work on them for you. All right, any further discussion? Any further discussion? So I expect, in summary, I expect for you to see information back on this within the next week and a half. I don't think it'll be in time for your public safety committee meeting just because the resources are out of town. They're on vacation this week. So it'll probably likely be next week when we get that back. But as soon as we have it, we'll send it to you.
Mr. Chair,
Councilmember Holloway.
I'm still confused. To what scope?
What we asked for was that the information was given be looked at by legal counsel for creation of a potential legislative path and potentially an ordinance for those things that would be separate from other paths you're currently on. For example, the BESS ordinance.
Piece, again, as
Councilmember Holloway.
I'm back to as far as those liability things, that's the moratorium process and fold into that. When I boil that away, well, what's left for legal action, for legislative action?
Find out.
So counsel, for what it's worth, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a BESS expert. What I can do is when you ask me to, and a majority of you did ask this, the three council members on the Public Safety Committee asked, and then the F&A Committee took up your request and also requested this. So this has gone to council for an assessment. We need a legal assessment, and as soon as we have it, I'll let you know that. Councilmember Johnson.
I just wanted to add that, or just my version of that is, we'll probably find an answer to that when we find out. I think that is just a question that is not currently known.
If the concern is that significant resources are going into this, this is an initial consideration to come back to you with an action plan. So, all right, if there's no further discussion. Councilmember Watton.
I just want to thank everybody on the council. I want to thank also those that showed up to our meeting to express their concerns and their support for having stronger language from City of Snoqualmie. And I think, you know, to reflect the comments both from the public and from our committee is we're taking a leadership position. And we're helping to show other communities what, a model ordinance, because this was started with an ordinance from King County in 2024. And now we're seeing the results of how the threshold is incredibly low and incredibly concerning. And it doesn't just impact us, it's the 38, 39 cities within King County that may be facing this same situation. So, but I appreciate having the opportunity to bring it forward to the council and have it in the Open Public Meetings Act and be something that is not happening behind closed doors. And I just encourage the administration, whatever you can do to support this community and making sure that this process is transparent and they understand. And just keep in mind, I did submit this for consideration back on June 23rd, and I understand that our resources are limited, but it is all being done very transparently and openly, and we'll just continue forward with that. And I appreciate the administration's support on that. Thank you very much.
Any further report from public safety?
That concludes for tonight. Thank you very much.
Excuse me, this is not open conversation with those in the audience. This is council discussion. You're welcome to observe, but not participate. Community, is there any report from the community development committee?
Nothing at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Is there any report from the Parks and Public Works Committee?
Yes, well, we've moving forward on some of our projects, but I did want to put in a request to the administration. Councilmember Holloway and myself have been participating for the city of Snoqualmie as representatives on the Snoqualmie Valley Aquatics Collaborative. And I would like to request that we could get them in, specifically Kate has a presentation that she's putting forward to other agencies that I would like her to come and present to our council. She's presenting to the North Bend City Council.
Sorry, Councilmember Cott, did you have a report from the Parks and Public Works Committee?
I am reporting on
Your committee did not discuss this.
We are part of this, so I'm updating.
I'm ruling your comments out of order. Do you have any other comments from Parks and Public Works Committee?
So she continues to show to other communities.
Councilmember Cotton,
and
please stop.
I am putting in a request to the administration to have this presentation brought forward to
You
council.
are out of order. Please cease.
Chair, point of order.
Councilmember Holloway, state your point?
Point of order, though. Comments are more appropriate at liaison reports versus committee reports. That is your point at this time.
Correct.
So, Kat, you got your opportunity a little later in the agenda, okay?
That's very good.
Any further report from Parks and Public Works Committee? Hearing none. Finance and Administration Committee, we have flood event update and potential land use and unincorporated UGA. Councilmember Johnson, is there anything to report?
Yeah, for the flood event update, there is no update. It's easy. And then with regard to the potential land use in unincorporated UGA, I do not recall F&A having any new discussion related to that, apart from what we've heard earlier tonight, along with setting the public hearing that we had earlier tonight. But there was nothing new to report at this time from F&A with regard to that, but this still is an item that's open for discussion.
Councilmember Holloway.
So there was some discussion on BES and F&A. I assume that's going to be part of the executive session?
Yeah, correct. And
Go ahead.
if I could follow up on that item, the external counsel was not available. I misunderstood or was misinformed for meeting tonight at 4:30, and I apologize for that. The external counsel has given us 2 dates, but we can get more if neither one of these works, but is available to meet with you on Get this right. Monday at 4 or Tuesday at 7, if either of those work for you. Councilmember Holloway.
Yeah, but can we set up a weekly meeting with that council at one of those two times? So that it's just a standing agenda meeting discussion that we have. I don't think the level of discussion is going to decrease, unfortunately, anytime soon.
Sure.
And I'm concerned that the schedule thing is going to drag us out. So Monday at 4 may be what was the 7 o'clock? What was the Tuesday?
Tuesday at 7.
So I move that we do a weekly meeting Tuesday at 7 o'clock.
You could make a motion, or
Yeah.
I could just do it for you.
Okay, well, I make a motion that we have an executive session concerning BES Tuesdays at 7 o'clock.
By which you mean a special meeting of the council every Tuesday at 7 o'clock that contained a executive session with legal counsel. Am I
Sure.
getting that correct? Okay. Moved by Councilmember Holloway and seconded by Councilmember Watton. Any discussion? Councilmember Washington.
Yeah, my only concern with it is, so you're saying this Tuesday or next week's Tuesday?
Good.
Or just every Tuesday of every week?
Tuesday of good question.
Okay, because we have FNA. So if FNA runs over,
You could stop running over.
well,
Sorry,
I
Mayor.
mean, we don't have
Gotta be
control of that.
concise.
Yeah, so
Gotta be
maybe,
concise.
maybe 7:30? Should we amend it to?
I'd rather take a pause.
Sorry,
in-
Councilmember Holloway.
I'd rather take a pause in FNA, do the meeting with the lawyer, and then continue the FNA afterwards. But we have very seldom have we gone past 7.
If only it were true.
Yeah.
Huh?
If only it were true.
Okay.
Councilmember Washington.
Except for the last meeting. And I think the meeting before that. But,
Right.
All right,
I
you'll
would,
modify the
so
motion.
I'll modify the motion, what Councilmember Holloway said, for every Tuesday at 7:30.
I'll second
Hear
that.
that, Chair?
Sorry, move to amend the motion to change the time to 7:30.
Every Tuesday night at 7:30, correct?
So moved by Councilmember Washington, seconded by Councilmember Johnson. Any discussion of the amendment? Councilmember Holloway.
Clarification, would tomorrow night be too soon?
Yes.
Okay, so it'd be starting whatever that date is for that Tuesday. I can't do the math at this late.
The 21st.
Councilmember Cotton.
So can't we roll this into coordinating with council meeting nights instead of making it on other committees nights where committee members would, like Parks and Public Works is on Tuesdays at 5. We would, if we chose to stay for FNA, then, and that meeting, that makes for another long evening. So is it possible to coordinate with the other attorneys? That I don't understand why we can't have a standing meeting either before or at the end of council meetings regarding that as an option for those that actually have a life, a family.
You're like an official on a life.
Councilmember Washington.
Agree to that statement. I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, is the attorney available Mondays at 4? Did I hear you correctly?
No idea. I know that he's available this coming Monday at 4, and I'll have to find out about other availability, but I would think that with lead time, he will make himself available.
So Monday being the 20th, right?
You can't do the math this late at night either.
13 plus 7.
13 plus 7 is 20. Yes, sir. And if you were to change your motion to say something like Mondays prior to the first committee meeting and on the other Mondays prior to council meeting, then we can just slot in the times to sort of match up well for you. So that would be your option. Councilmember Washington, Councilmember Johnson.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if that's something that outside counsel can even commit to So I'm not even sure if we can do this as a standing thing without talking to them. That's just a concern.
That's why I suggested you just let me try to run it down for you.
Yeah.
But Councilmember Watton.
Mondays, for some of us, are just slammed until about 5. It's just the way it is. Tuesdays would be more preferable work-wise.
All right, seeing no further discussion, the motion is to amend the motion to change the time to 7:30. All those in favor say aye.
On Tuesday.
No,
Oh,
wait a minute,
sorry.
wait.
We have to do the big dinosaur first.
Sorry, hold on, everyone stop talking at once. Did someone have Councilmember Holloway?
Well, I want to go with your suggestion. Can I amend the motion to have administration work schedule with the attorney so that we can have a weekly meeting of about an hour duration sometime according to schedule mutually agreeable upon. You can do a survey of us and see when we're available, and the attorney can tell us when he's available, and let's see where we can get the most people there.
Motion by, very long motion by Councilmember Holloway.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Johnson. We'll go back and pick that motion up off the tape. Any discussion of the motion to amend to 1 hour on Tuesday or 1 hour on, hold on. 1 hour on Tuesdays or Mondays, weekly time to be worked out with council and external counsel. All right, any discussion of that amendment? See, hold on, let me have to consult here.
We should just wipe the thing and do no motions.
No, it's different. I think there are 3 dinosaurs in it.
Sorry, council. Because of the order of the motions, I'm going to rule this motion out of order. Dispose of the motion to amend that's on the table, and then you can remake this motion. So the current motion that is in order is to amend the time for the Tuesday weekly meeting to 7:30. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay.
Nay.
Motion carries. The amended motion is on the table. Did someone want to make a motion?
I don't know if I get to say all that. Oh.
So Councilmember, would you like, Holloway, would you like to make the motion you previously made at this time?
Yes.
So moved.
So moved.
Second again.
Moved by Councilmember Holloway, second by Councilmember Johnson to change the time to be weekly on either a Monday or Tuesday, 1 hour in duration at a time to be worked out with council and external counsel, Council IL and Council EL. All right, any discussion of that motion? This is a motion to amend. See none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. That motion passes. Now to vote on the amended motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. The amended motion carries.
Look what we did.
How packed.
Oh, what a clear room.
All right, moving on to the next item on the agenda, which is the mayor's report. A few items, since you haven't received a report for several of your sessions. A few things. First off, the police chief target start date is now mid-August. We have reached a tentative agreement with firefighters. The terms are within council authorization. The council will give you a briefing on this later this month. We expect the union to vote on it by the end of July and then bring it to you for ratification in early August. We now started internal meetings to prepare for the Teamsters contract negotiation. give you a council briefing on this also later this month. We've now centralized the Parks and Public Works related reservations, permitting, and accounting support activities to City Hall. So there's now no longer a need for the public to go to the Parks and Public Works building. All of those activities now happen here at City Hall. So ending the most public facing, well, ending the public state facing staffing requirements of Parks and Public Works building. I suspended enforcement of the city's sign ordinance once the best related signs went up, because I was concerned that our current sign ordinance, was concerned whether that applied to political signs or not. As you know, the city has not enforced its code during the season where candidates put up their signs, and where the state allows, during the period the state allows for those to go up. So we already weren't enforcing that with respect to political signs. And I was concerned, my question was, well, is a best sign fall into that category? What is the definition of this category that we're not enforcing? And by the way, that enforcement was not at council's direction. That's just been the standing practice of administration. So I asked for that enforcement to stop, or instructed that enforcement to stop, and asked the legal department to do a review of the compliance of our sign ordinance that governs yard signs and so forth, and look at compliance with state law and legal precedent developments. My desire was to ensure that the city was not violating current legal requirements regarding First Amendment rights. That review resulted in advice that some aspects of our ordinance are not in compliance with current requirements. The Community Development Committee has referred this to the Planning Commission for evaluation and recommendation to council. As required, that those ordinances must go through Planning Commission before they come to council. So it's gone to them as required by law. In the meantime, I've used guidance from the city attorney to resume enforcement of portions of the current code that are not in conflict with state law. The key thing that I'll just mention to council to know is that unlike our current code as written, sign code and sign code enforcement must be content blind. It's allowed to be location aware, but not content aware. And so that's why that whole discussion of political or non-political signs turns out to be absolutely the wrong thing to be looking at. It has to do with, in fact, it must be content blind. So that process is now happening through Planning Commission, and updated sign regulation recommendation will be coming from Planning Commission to you as soon as they get through this process. Councilmember Holloway?
Are we aware of the context of the public comment earlier from the non-city resident? Oh, that's a pun.
We just, as you know, we don't really respond to city, to comments, but I will tell you that as that person exited the building, the city administrator went and collected their information, because the thing they were referring to is not something I'm aware of at all.
Oh, okay.
So we're going to need to find out what was being referenced, what's going on. But as described, I was very concerned because that did not fit my understanding of what would be a permissible enforcement.
Separate from your action you're currently talking.
Correct. But, you know, it raises a question of whether what we're doing matches what I just told you we're doing. So we will get to the bottom of that and make sure we're doing what I told you to do. And that current guidance was distributed citywide, and I believe all council members were copied on that. Please let me know if you have any further questions on that. Councilmember Johnson.
Yeah, I just also wanted to mention that many of our residents are aware of code that is not content blind, but that only applies to HOAs, which like 90% of our residents happen to live in one. So that's the particular part of the code that many of us and many of our residents are aware of, but it doesn't apply to cities. Just want to make that clear.
All right. Want to inform the council, we've received a notice of termination from the Issaquah Municipal Court Services, from the City of Issaquah regarding Issaquah Municipal Court Services effective December 31st of 2026. It appears there was initial contact in November of 2025 to our previous city administrator, indicating there would be further follow-up. I wasn't made aware of this, and it does not appear that we ever received any further follow-up until just recently when we received the notice of termination. I've been in contact with the mayor of Issaquah and staff, the city administrator, and it appears that this is a procedural matter, that in fact they just want to renegotiate the contract. And so we're working through that process, and we'll give you more update on that. But I wanted you to be aware that this was going on. Turns out we have a new city employee that might know something about who to talk to on that regard. I will say that we will have a look at the alternative, which is King County that's located in Issaquah. King County courts, currently used by Sammamish and others. King County also provides municipal court services for Bellevue and others, but more on this as we go into it. I think we're very satisfied with the services that Issaquah has provided, so we'll see how the discussion pans out, but I'll report further to you as we learn more. We're continuing the consultation process with the Snoqualmie tribe on the Sandy Cove Restoration Project. I want to let you know there's lots of activity in our community development department. We have a proposed development downtown, several businesses proposing sign deviation requests, including the SVH hub, and requests related to building things in our downtown historical district. The significant work to zone Snoqualmie Ridge and revise our comprehensive plan for the urban growth area is now taking significant time from staff, and you'll start to see a lot of public engagement on that. Also takes a lot of time from the Planning Commission. Also takes a lot of time from our Community Development Committee, so you can plan for your meetings to get a lot more busy here in the second half of the year. The Economic Development Coordinator position, which you authorized and funded, that job has been advertised. The application closed the application period closed June 30th. Over 40 applications were received, so we're now in the process of interviewing for that. I think that's very encouraging. The Senior Planner job will be, that you also authorized and funded, will be advertised in August. Turns out our CD director needs a little bit of break between interviews for one position before we start on the second position. Also, the legal assistant job will be advertised starting this week. That's the replacement of Robert Thrall, who left and is sorely missed right now. Some of you were aware that there was some public discussion of the July 4th morning walk to Community Park. My understanding, the city had a number of safety concerns. In a discussion with the walk sponsor, the ROA, the walk was initially canceled. When I and some council members became aware of this, we contacted their staff, met with them for further consideration. We found a path to reinstate the walk with a new route and addressing the safety concerns. For example, one of the safety concerns had to do with big fire trucks and small children on bicycles that get into areas where it's hard for them to be seen, and a number of other things. So anyway, I was very pleased that that went forward, and then now we're going to look into what do we do for next year with a little more time. Let's figure out how to sort of continue to make this a successful event. What can we learn from what happened this year? Continuing the monthly coffee with mayor events, splitting them each month between downtown and the Ridge, between morning and afternoons. The most recent was at Grassy Winery on the evening of June 30th. If any of you would like to join, if you would like us to facilitate coffee with council members, please let me know, and we're happy to sort of organize that, or either combined or organize that for you. The police chief nominee, Scott Miller, was in town last week for final steps in the vetting process, and he met with the police department staff to be introduced and have interactive conversations. So I was very pleased to see that begin. I participated, as did our police department, in the Mount Si High Senior Parade on May 30th. There were significant concerns about safety that came out of that parade that we will need to discuss going forward with the PTSA and with the school district. Few quick things. The Snow-Fi was launched on June 3rd. I think I previously reported to you on that. Flower baskets went up on May 15th. Light pole welcome banners on June 4th. And for the year, the splash pad grand opening was on June 16th. The PSRC General Assembly, at which officer elections were approved and the annual budget was approved, was on May 28th. And the SVGA on May 27th met and was addressed by County Executive Gramaya Zahalai. One other thing quickly to bring to your attention is King County has passed an initiative for additional funding of roadways, which is of particular interest to unincorporated King County in the Snoqualmie Valley. Some funding was also planned for smaller cities such as Snoqualmie, and other regional mayors, and the SCA were all involved in lobbying for this. At the last minute, there's a push by Seattle that caused a significant portion of that to be redirected there. This again highlights that we don't have staff to engage on regional issues, and that there are significant opportunities for council member involvement in regional lobbying, especially through the SCA PIC, where Snoqualmie's had very little involvement this year. I think it's been many months since we had a representative turn up at those meetings. So encourage you to get involved in lobbying. Let me know if you're willing to help, and encourage you to be involved, all of you, in SCA committees, including the PIC. That is the report I have for you tonight. Hold on. All right, moving on to commission committee liaison reports. Councilmember Cotton.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to go back and reiterate the topic that has previously been under Parks and Public Works. But I would, at this time, as myself and Councilmember Holloway are representing the city of Snoqualmie at the Snoqualmie Valley Aquatics Collaborative, which is a combination of entities across the valley, the upper and lower valley. I would like to make a motion to have Kate Lean bring forward to the city council here in Snoqualmie the presentation from SVAC, and allow our council to have the same level of access to the information as the other entities such as North Bend City Council, Skyview Parks, Fall City Metro Parks, and Snoqualmie Valley School District at the time that is fitting for in the near future for council meetings.
Rule that motion out of order. As a reminder to council, under your rules of procedure, the F&A committee sets the agenda for this council. Please take your request to the F&A committee for their consideration. Councilmember Holloway.
So just clarification, was that the combined Parks District presentation?
Yes.
Being the other member representative, I am not in support of that having in front of the council. More than welcome to have it out to the council members, but at this time, I'm not. Let's have discussion at F&A, but it's too soon for that conversation, in my opinion.
But not the presentation.
Sorry, Councilmember Cotton.
But the presentation is just informational only.
Sorry, I've ruled this motion out of order at this time and encourage you to take that up with the F&A
Let's take
committee.
it up with F&A.
Also, as a reminder, council members, generally, if you want items, you should be putting it on the agenda So when you approve the agenda at the beginning of the meeting, that's the time to put it on and get your fellow council members to approve that being put on the agenda. I generally should rule those motions out of order if they're not on the agenda, but just something to think about procedurally. All right. Any other liaison reports? Councilmember Washington.
Yeah, I guess I'm confused. I thought with a motion, anyone can put anything on the agenda at any time, Chair.
So would you like to, perhaps we could have follow-up on rules of procedure and Robert's Rules of Order? Let me know and we can get time with the council, with city attorney for you.
Well,
Thank you.
Councilmember Holloway.
Can we have that discussion in FNA? Because I may make a motion that the next time we have a meeting before 5 o'clock, we have dinner. And if I can't do that.
Can I second them? Oh, I
Yeah,
can't.
no,
second the motion.
So let's.
Absolutely, we'll bring
there's
it
a place
conversation.
for unagended motions.
Yeah, there's a process by which, all I'm saying, there's a process by which you add something to the agenda. And so it might be useful to sort of go through that process at FNA and then maybe follow that on at full council to sort of help you procedurally get through what you're trying to accomplish. Councilmember Cotton.
And so is the procedure now that when we want to have a presentation come to us, like the council requesting PSE to come and give a presentation, or the correctional department, that we go to FNA now instead of making it before the general council?
The FNA sets your council meetings, so that is the correct procedure. Councilmember Johnson.
Yeah, it would be that the committees would make the request to FNA, and what the administration brings to FNA to review at FNA includes those requests, or at least it's supposed to. Hypothetically, it would include those requests, and then FNA would then review. So at the committee level, that could be done. And I do apologize, Mother, we are straying a little bit away from our agenda here.
Yep. All right. Any additional liaison reports? All right, seeing none. There's no item for executive session, so that comes to the end of our council agenda. There being no further business on the council agenda, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Johnson, second by Councilmember Watton. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The motion carries and we're adjourned.
Come on.